What's not okay to do with a guy friend when you have a boyfriend? The opposite of this. My 17, soon-to-be 18-year-old nephew had a prom recently. His parents are good friends with a couple in Florida, and for whatever reason he was invited to Florida to be the couple's daughter's date for prom. Mind you that this wasn't some family-held secret. His parents knew it, duh. My parents knew it. His sisters knew it, aunts and uncles knew it, grandparents knew it. We were at a restaurant and began talking about it when my nephew went to the bathroom. As he's embarrassed about the topic, my sister came to the conclusion that he should not tell his girlfriend, and everyone else nodded in agreement. I was the only one who was gawking at her in disapproval. It's one thing to go to prom with another girl. It's another to do so and not tell your girlfriend about it, as well as lie about what you were doing at the time. I said the standard, if you were on the receiving end, how would you feel? But no one batted an eye. Bruh, the heck. This whole situation is giving me secondhand embarrassment. I wasn't even involved and I'm still cringing. Story 2. Depends on what friendly means to you. I once had a female friend who was super friendly and very physically affectionate. She'd greet me with a kiss. She'd cuddle up with me on the couch. She liked to hold hands. I was fine with this and knew she was being friendly and there weren't romantic ties to her actions. However, once she got a significant other and my friend's actions continued, they were understandably upset. So the other comment of, don't do what you wouldn't do if your boyfriend was standing next to you is generally good advice. It doesn't cover it if you think your actions are fine. Like the girl in my story thought, it's best to have a conversation if you sense him getting upset and see if your boundaries align with his. It doesn't mean bend to his will and make him happy, but at least you'll know if his boundaries are acceptable to you and you'll avoid arguments from playing it by ear and waiting for a fight. Story 3. Use them as a boyfriend replacement when your boyfriend is not available. I'm not really talking about physical stuff. I mean, using another guy to fill in whatever void you would normally do with your boyfriend if he happens to not be available. I get platonic friends and workplace partners are a thing, but trying to fill an emotional void with someone else because your boyfriend isn't available is what sends mixed signals more than anything. Even if that's not the conscious intent, I want to emphasize it's okay to do things if your partner isn't available with other people or even just another person. It's more a self-examination of when you're interacting with another person singularly and why. Story 4. I remember a conversation with my ex. She was quite close to their own ex who she had been friends with for years before they even got together. So I understood her keeping in touch with him and they shared a friend group, etc. So I wouldn't want to get in the way of that. However, after a party, she mentioned she had stayed over at, we'll call him Pete's, and that she'd done it before, so it's quite handy. It was a long time ago, so I can't remember the finer details, but I ended up asking where she slept when staying at Pete's, and it turns out she would sleep in his bed, with him. That was one of our final conversations. So, I suppose sharing the bed with a guy friend qualifies for the list, especially if it's your ex. Story 5. There's a lot of structured answers here, but the real answer is that it depends. You need to have a real conversation with your partner and be open about your feelings and boundaries. Then you can figure out what's okay to do with friends. I've been married for over 25 years and my wife and I know each other's boundaries. Friends are fine. We do not hide stuff from each other. Neither of us is into watching the other person flirt. I'm a bit more possessive than she is, but we talked about it. Instead of trying to control her, I try to start with how I feel and what those feelings are rooted in. I wasn't always like this. Younger me was idiotic. One of my best friends is super relaxed with his wife and doesn't care if she flirts or dances with other guys. She's more possessive than he is, but they make it work because they've had honest conversations. Story 6. Cuddling, long hugs, and obviously intimacy. Don't talk to them about your intimate life or go crying to them for comfort if you get into a conflict with a significant other. If your partner needs you, like if their car breaks down or they get mugged, don't use this person as an excuse for why you can't be there for them. A lot of people wouldn't want their significant other to be alone with an opposite gender friend in a private space either. It's up to you whether this is a deal breaker for you. And it's totally okay if it is, but most people I know in relationships generally hang out with their opposite gender friends in a group of 3 or more. Story 7. I think you want to know about a specific thing, but unless you tell us what specific thing you want to do, we can only give you general answers. I think there are 2 ways to approach this issue. Imagine your boyfriend was doing this thing with a different girl that you didn't know. If you don't like it, then don't do it. And if you like it, but it turns you on, probably still don't do it. Imagine your boyfriend is in the room somewhere and you're talking with a guy that he doesn't know. Do you look around to see if your boyfriend is watching before you do this thing? If so, then don't do it. If you think you might have to explain to your boyfriend why you're doing it, then don't do it. Story 8. I'm not friends with any girls I wouldn't mind sleeping with. That's usually almost always a sticky situation. That's why couples are uncomfortable about it. Because, well, yeah, tread carefully. It usually doesn't work out the way you think it will. Yes, you can absolutely have friends of the opposite gender, but they usually come over with their kids and husband during a 4th of July barbecue and leave shortly after. It really depends on the context. But having a single friend of the opposite gender that you're constantly in contact with usually never ends well for anyone. There might not be an underlying motive, but 9 times out of 10, there usually is. Story 9. Rule number 1. Don't do anything you wouldn't tell your partner over breakfast. Rule number 2. If that starts to feel like you can't do anything whatsoever at all, double check whether your partner is actually relationship material. Take it from someone who's been mono and a triad and who's been in 2 poly and open relationships for 8 and respectively 3.5 years. What does and doesn't work in a relationship depends on the people in it and how well they communicate. There's folks out there who can draw the line at cuddling friends and others who couldn't give less of a crap. There's already folks who lose their crap at 1-to-1 time. Those are not dating material, just to be utterly clear. And others were a lot more relaxed. The person to ask is always our partner first, and then ourselves. If we are okay with the rules our partner wants to put down, all dandy. And if not, there is either compromise or a necessary breakup that, while sad, benefits everyone involved in the long run. People who walk through this world thinking their personal way of doing things is the one and only rarely overlap with people who make for great partners. Story 10. Me and my fiancée recently broke up because of the things she was doing with her male friend who was bi. Only had a history of dating girls. Tried to set boundaries as it was making me uncomfortable. Mostly it was the texting. It was her only Snapchat friend she talked to consistently. Never really snapped me. Had more one-on-one time with her than I did because of school. Constantly sending selfies, texted each other till midnight, buying her a lot of gifts. Never compromised whenever I tried to set boundaries. Called me controlling. She'd get all dolled up whenever he came over. Wore his old clothes he gave her. Talked about toys. Wasn't coming home on time when I watched her son and had dinner ready. Confided in him about our relationship problems. Became more distant and started hiding her phone more. I don't think anything physical occurred, but emotionally, I felt like she was cheating and I was being pushed further back in her priorities. We couldn't trust each other anymore. And breaking it off, though painful, was the right call, due to all the stress it was having on our health, at least mine. I was packing my things to move out, he was there, already replacing me, it seemed. I believe boys and girls can still be friends, but it's up to your particular dynamic to see what is okay and what is not. Admittedly, I am an insecure person, but in our case, she wasn't doing much to make me feel secure in the first place. Okay, I get borrowing a t-shirt, but like, his old clothes? Was this some kind of weird symbolic gesture? Like she was absorbing his essence or something? Story 11. Oh man, I was in this situation for years. My best friend had a boyfriend who didn't like me. I didn't like him either because of how he treated her. We worked together and hung out after work and stuff for years, and I was genuinely in love with this girl, but she was already taken by the schmuck. Didn't feel right about the whole situation, so I quit my job and told her how I felt, and I understood the situation and we needed to not see each other anymore. A year went by, and they ended up breaking up. We've now been together for almost 3 years, and I think I'm gonna marry this girl. Spent years being silent about my feelings because I knew it wasn't respectful to her or him as much as I didn't like him. I don't know if I really answered the question, but I'd say if you're disrespecting the relationship at all, it's not okay. Story 12. Don't ask your male friends to do all the favors, chores, and tasks that you don't want to ask your boyfriend to do. I don't mean specialized tasks. If your buddy Joe is a plumber and he can help you replace a hot water heater on the cheap, then call Joe and ask him for help. However, I've had female friends ask me to do all sorts of errands for them, and when I asked why their boyfriends couldn't, they said some derivation of, I don't want to annoy my boyfriend. Why the heck are you annoying me? Getting married was the best decision ever made in my life. Some women really do not understand boundaries. Story 13. If you call this person your boyfriend, you must be committed to them. I believe a couple needs to be a unit while maintaining their individuality. What I mean is embrace your beliefs and thoughts, but also be able to put yourself in your partner's shoes and see your actions and beliefs from their perspective. No two minds are the same, so understanding each other is key. If you truly are committed to this person, then anything that you wouldn't do in front of your boyfriend or this guy, i.e. affection, flirting, inappropriate jokes, or anything around that matter, just don't do it. If you want to be with your boyfriend, don't create trust issues. Guy friends always reach the point where they feel they can go to the next level, regardless of if you have a partner or not. So if it's worth it to keep your boyfriend, keep your friend a friend. Maybe even tell him you don't feel comfortable hanging out with him without your man. Maybe even try to get them to become friends. Keep his trust and he will keep you happy. Much love. Stay true. Story 14. Spending much more time with him rather than with your partner. My best friend and I have known each other since we were preteens. I was literally the first friend they ever had because they were raised in a remote farm with next to no contact outside of their family. We do almost everything together. And for as long as we've known each other, we spend more time together than we spend with anyone else in our lives outside of work. We're both in relationships. I've known my boyfriend for about 8 months, give or take. Been together for less. They've been together for about a year. Both of our partners know this and understand that, yes, I am going to do more things with this person I've shared over half my life with, went through some serious traumas with, hit almost all of my current major life milestones with, than the person who I've known for a few months. If I use she to describe this relationship, it's fine. It's childhood friends, maintaining a friendship together even as their lives change. There are dozens, if not hundreds, of cheesy movies about that exact thing that people point to as an ideal friendship. If I use he, it's emotional cheating. It's disrespecting my boyfriend. It's unacceptable and I should be ashamed of myself. I'm bisexual. Am I just not supposed to have any close relationships outside of my partner? The societal expectations of adults basing who they should form a platonic relationship with and how many of them are men is freaking weird. And I can't for the life of me understand why it's the standard. Story 15. Honestly, I don't believe in guy friends. I guarantee if a girl who has many guy friends for experimental purposes calls these guy friends and tells them to come over and fool around, the majority of them will be on their way. Not so guy friend, is it? Also, I guarantee if you break up with your boyfriend, you will probably run to your guy friend. I think male and women can be friends only in rare situations. I have a lady friend who I go fishing with. She's a lot older than me. There's no attraction. There's never been anything between us. My ex used to go crazy when we went fishing together. I invited my ex to come with me as many times, and she never came. Then she tells me she has this childhood guy friend who they had a fling with. And one time took all of us to hang out, and I said no. When we broke up, she ran to her guy friend. Lol. Now she's trying to get me back, but we have deeper issues than guy friend or lady friend, so that's another story. Story 16. Constant texting, including late-night texts from bed. In my scenario, this wasn't ever hidden from me, which perhaps proved my girlfriend didn't realize how that looked, but after I said something, that should have meant something. It continued nevertheless. And it's not just about the awkward times or the closeness. It's about when having some fun or interesting story to share, she shares it first with a guy friend instead of me. That's a red flag in my humble opinion. It also matters whether this is a guy she's been friends with since long before she met her boyfriend, in which case you can't really require someone to end the relationship, and meeting someone new while in a relationship and getting to that point of closeness. When I'm in a relationship, I avoid getting too friendly with girls I've just met. My logic is, if I'm happy, I don't really need this. Story 17. Talk to your boyfriend about this. Not everyone has the same boundaries. My general rule of thumb is that if you would do it with a girlfriend, it's probably fine. I think most people would find that a bit too lenient, but when you enter the realm of dating or being a bisexual person, you realize that it doesn't really make sense to set your boundaries based on the gender of the person in question. Intent matters a lot, too. For example, if you're the kind of person who likes to kiss your friends on the cheek as a show of affection, that's not a problem as long as everyone involved, you, your partner, the friend in question, consents. When it becomes a problem is when the intent shifts from being friendly to being in pursuit of some sort of romantic or gratification. Story 18. My best friend is a guy, and it's never been an issue for my husband. We've talked about it a time or two, and my husband has told me that the reason it's never bothered him that his wife has a guy best friend is because I've always been completely transparent about their relationship. I consistently include my husband in plans with my friends, including the BFF. We've always gone out on double dates with the BFF and his wife, and it also helps, in my husband's opinion, that my BFF is not my type at all. I'll also say that I do have boundaries on what I will talk about with my BFF, with him being the opposite gender. For example, I would never complain about my husband to my BFF or share details on a fight we'd had. And I feel that way because I wouldn't want my husband sharing that kind of stuff with his female friends. And when I'm out to dinner or something with just the BFF, my husband knows exactly where I am and when I'll be home. So no secrets or unknowns. Story 19. When I was younger, I used to hang out with a girl I was romantically interested in. Even though I was in the friend zone and I knew it. I was hoping something romantic would organically come from our close friendship, but never wanted to force anything or make it weird. And nothing like that ever happened. She would hit me up to hang out all the time and almost every time would end up sleeping in my bed with me, even though we never did anything intimate. She would say that even when she got married, her husband would have to respect her relationship with her best friend, me, and he could kick rocks if her sleepovers made him feel uncomfortable. She really genuinely thought that would be okay to do. I think that's really, really stupid. Because as a boyfriend, I would not feel comfortable with my girlfriend sleeping in her male best friend's bed with him all the time. And I don't think many girlfriends would appreciate their boyfriend sleeping in an attractive girl's bed on a weekly basis, especially if the boyfriend always calls her his best friend. She absolutely did not see how glaring of a red flag that would be for 99.9% of monogamous people. It really made me question which red flag society mostly agreed upon, and whether I'm the odd one. Story 20. The answers are already decisive, but sometimes the boundaries aren't as clear. For example, I played a touring band some years ago, and we did a one-week stint where a female backup singer was with us. My significant other had an irrational fear that this girl had a crush on me, though never having met her. She tried to stop me from going and was incredibly anxious the whole time I was away. I also had to give up my female friendships from high school for her. Meanwhile, it's okay for her to have male friends. Just last week, she was on her way out of the house and said she was getting lunch with Brant. It was a guy who was clearly interested in her around the time we started dating. I took the high ground and said it's cool, trusting her even when she didn't trust me. The same guy was hanging out when she lived with her parents, and she let him stay over when I got late. Separate rooms, apparently. Her parents said, "Don't you think Phoebes plays keys won't like that?" She just said, "He trusts me." I'm okay with it as I trust her, but sometimes it feels weird when the same isn't reciprocated. Story 21. There are a lot of normal answers, but ultimately the only real answer is you should respect the boundaries you and your boyfriend agreed to. Almost every other top answer is irrelevant if you have a discussion about boundaries and agree to what they should be, up front. A lot of, "I don't want my boyfriend to know," and that's pretty legit, but it's very possible that you have an open relationship with a don't ask, don't tell policy. So that goes out the window. Same for I wouldn't want my boyfriend to do it if the roles were reversed. Maybe your boyfriend has fixations and wants you to have intimacy with other guys, but you don't feel that way and want him to only be intimate with you. That's a totally legit scenario. Talk to each other and establish boundaries and then respect them. Story 22. On the subject of friendships, that's something that varies from relationship to relationship. Some people won't care, some will. Some will have a reason, some won't. Maybe your relationship matures after a year or two and becomes solid enough to accommodate platonic friendships. When I first met my wife, her best friend from high school got back in touch with her after we'd been dating for a month. She brought it up, told me that they'd had intimacy once out of boredom, that she wouldn't talk to him because of it. I didn't care either way, so I just sort of went with it. When he tried reaching out to her again and she just decided I should be fine with her reconnecting, it caused a bit of friction at first. I was upset because she made the decision without talking to me about it. So we all hung out together a couple times. Now I see a lot of people talking about how, if you trust your significant other, then why are you so crazy? But unless you're poly or someone with involving multiple partners and in a relationship that accommodates your desires, why is it so hard to understand that you don't want someone hanging around your partner that you can tell wants to fool around with them? It's not even so much an issue of trust. It's not a red flag to not want your significant other to spend time privately with someone who wants to replace you, especially if there's a history involved. It only becomes a red flag if you extend that to include everyone of your significant other's preferred gender as someone who wants to sleep with your partner. It's true. Platonic relationships exist. It's also sadly true that a lot of really good friendships are ruined because of jealousy in your relationship. However, it's also true that a lot of times, that person who your partner sees as a sibling refuses to acknowledge the fact that said sibling gives off all kinds of signals and will frequently put before you because they've always been my best friend, etc., etc. Is probably who they're going to cheat on you with, if they end up cheating on you. So back to the story. I hang out with my wife and this dude. He gets weird around me, squaring up and showing off in front of me and her. I tell my wife, she agrees it's weird, but is sure that there's nothing like that going on. Long story short, when he realized she was in a happy, committed relationship, he ghosted her. So yes, there can absolutely be platonic relationships, but you shouldn't be upset about your partner wanting to make sure that's what it is, unless they're being completely crazy about it. If you absolutely must maintain this friendship, even at the cost of your partner's hurt on the matter, then the relationship isn't compatible as is. You need to work it out between or break up. If you're enjoying the video, don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button for more videos like this. Story 23. In my view, anything where it's just the two of you, especially if the guy friend is single, there's an overwhelming probability, in my opinion, the guy friend wants to fool around but settles for not. To some extent, I suppose it also depends on how much time the dude wants to spend with a woman who's already in a relationship. Why isn't he out there finding someone for himself at that time? Hanging out with friend groups and such is fine, but if my girl would routinely go hang out alone with some other dude, I'd consider that an issue. I wouldn't try to forbid her or anything like that. Controlling what other people do is not great. I just really question what she needed from another dude so badly that she'd go hang out with him alone. Just the two of them. Real platonic friendship between two attractive people of the opposite gender is borderline myth, in my opinion. Many people pretend it's common. Sure. Story 24. Well, it's like this. If the boyfriend liked her enough to keep her, then he probably should have put a ring on it. This ain't kindergarten, folks. You don't get to play house with no ties. Taking all her time while you decide if you really want to keep them or not? Make her move or lose her. Same goes for women. Either take care of your guy or someone else will. Stop taking things for granted. You snooze, you lose. They haven't done anything wrong in my book. They aren't married, they're dating. They didn't pledge an oath or swear under God to be with that person until passing do they part. They ain't doing anything but playing with the thought of being married. Until they're married, all bets are off. Fair game. Play ball. Story 25. Truthfully, almost anything that you feel you need to keep a secret. But even then, there's some things that I wouldn't be comfortable with my girlfriend doing with another guy. The same way she would feel if I did similar things with a girl. The main things are kisses of any kind that aren't quick pecks in the cheek. Full frontal hugs that last several seconds. Basically if your cheek is against their chest or vice versa. Too intimate for me. Hand-holding. Sharing a bed. These are the main ones. I would be cautious about venting to guy friends about the relationship, unless something is actually wrong. I've seen a few relationships turn into emotional cheating because she complained that he didn't do the dishes, or he complained she didn't notice his new clothes or something. And then the friend validates and then strokes their ego. Weaker people fall prey to that feeling and cheat rather than end the relationship. If you're seeking or fulfilling emotional needs that should be fulfilled in a relationship, take a second look. Think long and hard if you want to even be in that relationship, because cheating of any kind is awful. Story 26. I personally don't talk to others of the opposite gender outside of public and professional situations, besides siblings and parents. That is not something my wife asked of me. She does the same for me. People put themselves in these situations and it just seems crazy to me. I'm also a fan of windows and office doors and things of that nature. I've seen lots of people talk about trust. It's not about trust. I trust my wife completely. I appreciate that she doesn't put herself in situations where there's even the remote possibility of something happening. She appreciates the same as me. We're both human and temptation is a thing. Respect your partner enough to not put yourself in that situation. Story 27. Tickling. Me and my ex broke up because she had a friend that started tickling her too often for me. Sometimes even in the swimming pool when she was wearing a bikini. I was in the right? My ex and her friends kept saying it was just fooling around, but I couldn't stand it, so we broke up. Before you ask, no, she's not with him now and nothing happened between the two apart from tickling and hug tickling. Just ask your partner and don't think, what if it was me? Quite often both partners have different sensibilities or perspectives of what's actually going on. Once you know how your partner feels, you can negotiate how much you're willing to forfeit. I'm sure you wouldn't want your actions to make your partner suffer, or you wouldn't want a partner that makes you suffer or doesn't care about it. Though if you feel you're forfeiting too much, then maybe your personalities aren't a match. Hey, sweetie, how do you feel about my friend tickling me when we're fooling around? I wouldn't mind if you tickled some of your girlfriends, but you might. What's your thoughts? As a counterexample, I'm currently married with a different woman, and when I was dating this woman, I went to a music festival, but she couldn't come. I went with 2 other girlfriends and the 3 of us shared a tent. This could be too much with a different person or a different relationship, but my absent girlfriend, now my wife, trusted me. I've never done anything that challenged her trust, and I never betrayed nor cheated on her. But I would accept it if she wanted me to buy a new tent lot and sleep by myself in a different tent. Just speak and ask your partner. Manage expectations. Hug tickling? Is that like regular tickling but with more embrace? Sounds intense. I'm picturing a full-on wrestling match but with giggles. Story 28. So incredibly simple. If he cannot come along at any time, it's not something you should do. This also means if he decides to show up wherever you are with his guy friend and you would be nervous, upset, angry, or any other emotion other than, hey hon, glad you're here too, then it's not okay. And I think the easiest way for a woman to understand this question is to reverse the scenario. Would you be comfortable with him doing exactly what you're doing? There's a caveat to this though. This only applies to someone who is absolutely committed to their partner, not someone who's just got a boyfriend, isn't serious, or isn't a casual style boyfriend-girlfriend. I said for a woman because women genuinely do not understand that there are no guy friends. Guy friends either want to have intimacy with you or are gay. There's no in between. Friend zone is a real thing that many, if not most, women do not understand. Story 29. Pretty much anything. There's not a lot of platonic friendships between people of the opposite gender. Either one of you secretly wants to sleep with the other or you both do. Most men and most women, there's just not enough common interests there to base a friendship on where you both hang out with each other with no physical interest. As a guy, the female friends I had when I was younger, it was all girls I had no attraction to at all, but 90% were into me. I'd never hang out one-on-one. I'd ask their opinion on relationships, etc., and occasionally I'd hang out as part of a larger group. If I was interested, there's no way for me to be friends. I'd either be actively pursuing something, or I'd avoid extended contact and not tempt myself as I was in a relationship already. Anyone I ever dated, I'd be transparent that I talked to a female friend, etc. And they'd mostly pretend to be cool with that when I knew they really weren't. I just phased them out. As a married man, no freaking way. I can be friends with my wife's friends when we're in a group setting, and that's it. If one of my kids meets a friend at school they want to hang out, unless it's the father setting it up, I'm 100% giving them my wife's phone number. I can't even imagine having a female friend as a married person in their 40s. That's just a social taboo that people don't cross. As a guy, there's just not a lot of things I'd have in common with most females to base a friendship on. They might be a nice person, they might be fun in a group setting, but one-on-one, they just aren't friend material. I've had a few female friends in the past when I was younger. I had no interest in them at all, but I'm pretty sure they did in me and just were too shy to ask. Not long-term or close friends, but occasionally I'd get invited out as part of larger groups to do things with them. There was a girl I dated briefly that I kept in contact with for a few years. We complained about our dating lives and hung out a few times when we were both lonely, but nothing more than that. If it was a girl I was attracted to, there was no way I could be friends. I'd either be actively trying to change the relationship or I'd be actively disengaged because I was in a relationship and I was avoiding those sorts of scenarios. Story 30. 100% agree with if you wouldn't do or say something with your boyfriend standing there or wouldn't tell him about it, it's not okay. But I wanted to add that this also goes for the guy friend. If he is behaving in ways that he wouldn't if the boyfriend were around, speaking differently when the boyfriend is or isn't around, sending texts that he doesn't want you to show the BF, etc., that should tell you a lot about his intentions and whether he's actually a friend or just a nice guy waiting for his chance to get in your pants. Basically, if the guy friend isn't respecting, supporting, and deferring to your relationship, you are wrong for allowing him to remain a guy friend at all, and I'd dump you for allowing his behavior even if you weren't doing any of the behaviors yourself. Story 31. Depends how stupid this question is really meant to be. There's the big list of obvious stuff, but obvious is in air quotes because people can be very selfish when they think they can get away with something. So start with pretending your boyfriend was standing next to you. Would you do the thing you're doing? Any hint of no, and it's a hard no. From there, though, you have to explore the concept that your boyfriend's feelings should matter to you. And he may feel uncomfortable with you doing all sorts of things that are otherwise not generally a problem, but could be in your relationship. If your boyfriend is upset about something you're doing with your guy friend, take that seriously regardless of what Reddit says. Ask him to explain what bothers him about it. Decide if that thing is very important to you in your relationship with your guy friend, and weigh that against making your boyfriend uncomfortable. Easy examples. You're dating a dude and it's very serious, you see a life with him. He doesn't like that you kiss your guy friend when you say hello. He doesn't make a big fuss, but he does mention it. Stop kissing your guy friend. You're dating a dude who's more of an intimate buddy than a life partner. He sees a pic of you and your friend on Instagram and demands that you stop seeing him and block him. Tell your buddy no and part ways if needed. Story 32. My girlfriend moved in with me after about 2 months of going out. It was sudden, yes, a little foolish. I was cooking for her every night and it was a bit of a whirlwind romance. I can't remember why, but something really nagged at me. A suspicion. I decided long ago that I'd either completely trust someone or not at all. I don't do jealousy. I'd rather trust than worry. If I can't trust someone, we shouldn't be together. End of story. For whatever reason, she left her iPad out and logged into Facebook. I checked her messages and found that every special and difficult meal I cooked for her, she had taken a photo of, sent it to a guy she was in contact with, and told him she made it, and couldn't wait to see him again and cook it for him. Turned out later as well that this guy had met her on Tinder and paid her to have intimacy with him. Multiple times. She was basically turned on to the idea of selling herself, and after I ended it and she moved out, she went into that business. Story 33. Having a guy friend. You either learn this the easy way or you learn it the hard way. Most of us end up learning the hard way. Be smarter than most. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. It always goes wrong. You can be friendly with people at work or school. I'm not saying be a schmuck to every guy you ever meet, but anything beyond appropriate workplace niceties will lead to problems. Don't flirt. Don't spend time alone. Don't share meals or drinks. Don't exchange gifts or get each other things, including coffee. Don't touch. Don't forget to mention your boyfriend. Don't complain about your boyfriend to him. Don't let that one slide or not enforce boundaries because it would be rude. The only time it is okay to meet outside of work or school is if you both have significant others. You both bring them and you do double dates as couple friends. if everyone is in agreement. But that does not change any of the other rules. Been on every single side of these dice, and it has never once not turned out horribly. Someone always gets hurt. Story 34. My best friend since high school got a super cool girlfriend right after we graduated. Used to work long hours, and since I was back home only for the summer, I used to spend lots of time with her or them. Like shopping with her, going out for a coffee or a movie, picking her up from work, and then we would both go together to pick him up and hang out. The three of us would go camping together, going to concerts, and had a total blast for a few summers. They eventually broke up years later, but me and her never had anything between us except pure friendship and fun. Even if she had developed feelings, her friends as girls were a huge no-no to me. One of my girlfriends at the time found all this super weird. She thought we were having a sick triad relationship, and she never fully trusted me. We had arguments all the time, and she even took that girl out to talk to her, get to know her, and smooth things out. This just never worked out. Eventually, we broke up, and she wrote me a letter saying she wants to come to our wedding. Funny enough, my best mate's ex-girlfriend organized her wedding with my current lovely wife. And my wife and she have been very good friends for almost 10 years now. Almost everyone that knew us at the time thought we were together secretly behind my best mate's back, so needless to say, we lost some friends along the way because of that. Sounds like a super schmuck thing to do, but as said above, nothing ever happened and all of us are still on best of terms. So, needless to say, not everything is as it looks from the outside. Story 35. As a man who shares 100% of the values of other men that I've met through my life, a platonic guy friend for a female doesn't exist. The same goes for a male friend for a guy who's in a relationship. Is it possible to be platonic with the other gender while in a relationship? Yes, but what is the point? Are you trying to build a long-term relationship? Have a family in the future, or you just have a boyfriend or girlfriend for fun? A female should have female friends and a guy should have male friends. If those friends are toxic, pushing to cheat, binge drink, and try to influence you while they're single and you're in a relationship, you distance yourself from them, which is why most older people who have a working long-term relationship barely have close friends anymore. Story 36. Look, the simple fact is that a lot of girls keep guys around to be their recovery boyfriend if their current boyfriend breaks up with them. To do this, they flirt so slightly with them or say things like, "Oh, I wish my current boyfriend would do what you just did." Just enough for the guy to think, "Man, if she was single, she'd probably want to date me." This is emotional mistreatment. Don't do this. If you're not comfortable in your relationship and you're afraid that your current boyfriend is going to break up with you for any reason, maybe you two aren't meant to be together, and you should accept that fact. The fact that 95% of guys who are friends with other guys' girlfriends would absolutely 100% fool around that girl if she wanted to and he was given the opportunity. There are YouTube videos on this where they go around and ask the third wheel if he'd have intimacy with her, and the answer is almost always yes. Story 37. So this is something I personally chose to do, not from pressure of any man. I won't spend time with my friend alone. There can be a group or another gal. I found my partners don't feel their insecurities as strongly this way. I feel like people are quick to shout that partners shouldn't be insecure, but the truth is, everyone has insecurities, and that's okay and human. I also think it's respectful when a guy buddy gets a girlfriend too and can help her feel less insecure. I always hope to foster a friendship with my girlfriends. I'm a girl's girl, so it's also an opportunity to expand my circle of friends. Win-win for everyone in my book. Story 38. I'm just a stranger on the internet, but I think a good way to avoid this might be to try and be friendly with a guy and make it clear that you respect the boundaries of their relationship. You probably won't see her as much, but that doesn't mean you need to lose her as a friend. When I met my wife, she had a male best friend, and we hit it off really quickly, and I became really good friends with him and his partner along with my wife. Funnily enough, they did end up having a falling out several years ago, but he and I are still friends, even if we're more distant than we used to be. I play Magic at his place most Fridays, and we also catch the draft and Super Bowl together and do fantasy football. I'm just saying it doesn't have to be the worst case scenario. And also that you can grow apart from someone while still maintaining a fondness and respect, and you each grow and change. Think of the old friends you had from school or growing up that you don't see for many years, but pick right up again where you're left off when you finally see each other. Story 39. When one partner hides something from the other when it is not a secret from anyone else, makes me wonder if the partner they're hiding the information from is one of those overbearing, hypocritical partners that doesn't allow their partner to do anything with other people, platonic or not. Meanwhile, they're free to do whatever they want, with anyone they want, and their partner is being psycho if they have any problem with it. Example, A doesn't allow B to hang out with her friends because they have friends of the opposite gender. And if there's any sign of B communicating with any of those friends, A accuses them of cheating. Meanwhile, A will continue spending time with all of their friends, including several exes who they are still close to, and routinely still have movie night with, wherein they snuggle up on the couch and share a bowl of popcorn, occasionally falling asleep and spending the night cuddled in each other's arms. But if B this is anything, they're being a psycho controlling partner. Story 40. Guys and girls can be friends like that. One always secretly has feelings for the other that would jump at the given chance. Men are salesmen. Women are marketers. When you choose to get in a relationship, you stop putting yourself out there to get noticed. Clubs, bars, attention-seeking behaviors, soliciting compliments from other men. Usually social media, as you expect your man to stop approaching females. Going to the bars to pick up women, flirting, chatting up. It's respect. You wouldn't appreciate if your man hung out with his female friends without you. Give him the same respect. Guys, what do women do that give you the ick? She's a nurse. Friday night, she's working to 9 p.m. Hadn't gamed in a while or spoken to my brother and friend, so we set up a gaming night that night, and she was aware of it. She gets home around 9:30 p.m. Says she's too tired to cook. She cooks a lot, though, so I'm not saying she's lazy. They want to go grab some food and asked me if I could bring her home. I politely declined, stating I had a few drinks and that I already had plans with my friends. She was upset at it. We broke up a few days later, and this was one of the two reasons she gave me. I failed her test to show I cared, I guess. This girl thinks him driving intoxicated is both an A-plus move and more important than her ordering in. Bullet dodged. Story 2. What's wrong? Nothing. I got fed up with that with one of my exes and said, okay, and went about my day. She tried to give me crap for that and told her, I tried to get you to talk about it and you didn't want to. That's on you. This is the reaction you're going to get from now on when you pull that. She stopped pulling that. I don't do this double-handed dishonest crap. I will take you at your word. If there's nothing wrong, there's nothing wrong. If you want to go shower and you're telling me about it, cool. I'll make sure I don't run any water. You don't want anything to eat, then you don't get any of mine. If you tell me you're broken, I will believe you and make plans accordingly, while hoping you sort your crap out, etc. Ad literally nauseum. After all, you don't want me to assume and treat you like you're a liar, so deal with it. Story 3. A lot of the things in here are toxic traits that anyone could have. But there's one thing I will say that is 100% related to gender. My wife thought for a while that I was a misogynist because of my very few social conflicts over the years. They have overwhelmingly been with women. But during my self-reflection, because only a great fool ignores a spouse's opinion, something occurred to me. I've never been spoken to by a man the way several women have spoken to me when we disagreed on something. A man knows that if he puts on a condescending voice and belittles another man, he's likely to be punched in the face. Because a lot of us have been punched in the face for it. But that consequence never comes to women, because we're taught to never hit them. So my ick is women who, without even realizing it, misuse their position as protected people to attack and denigrate others, especially since they are the same people to cry that they're victims of misogyny. Story 4. Probably the way they say, or in the past have said, that they'll support me and help and be there, yada yada. Then the first sign of weakness and vulnerability you show, accidental or not, then they start distancing themselves. Maybe in a way when they don't truly know what they actually want. The quantity, not the quality. Don't want a man that's going to be equal and 50-50 and split the bill. Acts vulnerable and can't control his emotions, and a majority don't like a man that gets defeated by something. Whether it's another dude physically or otherwise, a mental health crisis, a financial crisis. Show any of these things to your run-of-the-mill woman you'd think you'd like to make your wife, and she will look for an exit strategy once the dust's settled. The vast majority of women have said, you can talk to me about how you really feel. And if you're lucky, you get to end the conversation and the collapse of your relationship will happen slowly, but in time. Or you can have this conversation, end it with an argument because it's not about her or she thinks it is. A majority of women in this day and age don't give a crap about men. And they either don't hear them or don't listen, period. That's an ick. Then again, men, dudes, bros, stop putting these women in a freaking pedestal and work on yourselves in the meantime. Don't chase, delete Tinder, work out, and find peace in yourself. You're looking for something no one in this world can give you except for yourself. You'll know when to ask someone on a date or if they like to get coffee or whatever it is you're thinking about doing. Story 5. And they get mad at me for trying to help. I work in a big box store and it is customary to help people out, especially when lifting something heavy. But this one girl got so mad at me for trying to help because she thought I was belittling her. I literally offer the same amount of help to every guy. I'm cool if you're a feminist, but don't be toxic about it. You're a human before you're a female. We're all humans. We all need help at times. To clarify, this was help loading a tub and wall surrounds. I work in the department and she does not. The guy in my department all team lifts these things because they're large and heavy. She accepted help but was just a pill about it. Story 6. Assumption that we know what we did that was wrong and projection. Maybe it is just me, but when I do something wrong, I never attempt to be hurtful or be mean in any capacity, but sometimes it happens. I would like to be told in a reasonable manner that I have upset them. Maybe, just maybe, instead of bottling it up for days on end, hoping that I will work it out, just tell me, like an adult, what is wrong and how I upset you. I don't really have the intuition to always know what I've done that has upset you. I don't get annoyed by people that easily, but when I do, you bet your back I'll say something. And sometimes people have gone unreasonably angry at me for quite minor things. Going into another room while they're cooking dinner so I can quickly finish off fixing something, only to get a stern talking to about not listening, even when I've just said I'm going to the next room to finish fixing X. I feel they're clearly feeling some emotion that has been brought up from this action, but they aren't sharing this issue and instead lash out at me. Just talk to us. Please be less cryptic. Some mysteries are fun, but not when there are anger and guilt involved. Story 7. I was intimately inexperienced, and she wanted full, unprotected intimacy. Was very pushy about it. She knew I was a mistreatment victim. She ended up trying to cheat on me with a friend. He shut her down. She succeeded with another within a day, and he knocked her up. Then proceeded to badmouth me to everyone we knew for a while that I never put out. She dumped me over text on my birthday in the midst of all this, before my friend could even tell me about her cheating attempt. This was over the course of just 2 days. She has a kid with that ex-friend who got arrested some few years ago. My ex and I have had a few adult conversations since then and ended up somewhat amicable. She was able to learn from her mistakes, and I learned from it all too. The reason I include this is because my experiences weren't unique. The amount of men I've talked to who were pushed or shamed into activities at the risk of being publicly outed for being inexperienced or uncomfortable depresses me deeply. Too many people I've spoken to have been able to relate to or empathize with my experience, and all of them share the same trait, myself included. We've been made fun of for it, like it's a joke. Story 8. So I had a terrible weekend, and by the end I was disgusted and found her repulsive. Butch came over to stay the weekend. Cool. Early on I noticed she would walk over to where my alcohol was, grab the bottle and just take a quick swig. I told her to get a glass. She continued not to. Any drink she opened, took like 2 drinks, then didn't drink anymore. By the end left almost full soda cans, bottles of water. Went to eat out and got a beer. Everything. On the last day she was here, she popped one of my champagne bottles open at like 9 a.m. I yelled at her from my room. What the heck are you doing? Stop drinking. She felt sick the last day from all the crap she drank the night before and that morning. She was extremely sloppy. So I handed her a canned drink, said to be careful not to spill it. First sip, saw her take a drink and see it run down the side of her mouth and at the bottom of the can. Placing it on the table, getting her hands and table all sticky. Left crumbs everywhere she ate. When we got in my car, was very touchy, putting her filthy hands in the ceiling, side window, and front window. I just couldn't believe how much of a slob she was. I didn't even mention her getting belligerent in the lift and getting us kicked out, yelling for no reason. There's a major drinking problem and didn't realize it until it was too late. Story 9. Psychopathy in general. My ex would get extremely hammered. I'd go to bed trying to avoid her. She would stay up all night, turning lights on and off. She would dump cold water on me while sleeping, slamming doors, etc. We were married for 21 years. Not exactly sure what changed. I know she struggled with substances. She would drink liquor straight from the bottle on a regular basis. Amazingly, she has custody of her children. I showed the court system videos of her behavior. They didn't care. It must have been my fault. She got to keep the house and almost every asset, while I was put on the street with nowhere to go. She refused to work while we were married. I honestly have spousal PTSD. We've been separated for almost 2 years and she still tries to torture me. So my short answer is, if you're a schmuck, you give me the ick. Story 10. Constantly wanting equality but not the responsibility that comes with a privilege you want. This is especially true for women in the military. If a woman gets deployed and doesn't want to be there, she can legit get herself knocked up by one of the male soldiers and get sent home, but the guy's got to stick it out. If a woman becomes pregnant, it's not an issue. Men could get an Article 15 for a sunburn. A few years back, 2008, I think a female soldier successfully petitioned to be taken off a deployment because she was a single mom. Single military dads get no such treatment. Women have far more luxuries than men. They have better odds in custody court, can get special grants or loans for simply being a woman. There isn't a loan for being a man. There's hundreds of women's shelters. 0 men's shelters, but ain't no women trying to protest to have men a safe place to go after they got their crap rocked by a cruel significant other. Women can hurt men and get lesser punishment than if a man were to strike a woman. Women can allege mistreatment, whether true or false, and have a man locked up. Men can't do that. Sorry, I went on a tangent. If I get a sunburn, can I identify as a woman and get a lighter sense? Asking for a friend who's very pale. Story 11. Trans dude here. And honestly, this is likely less a woman issue than a neurotypical issue. It just so happened to be most pronounced in the women in my family. Having been raised as a girl most of my life, something I never understood was the expectation to be able to read minds. Almost literally. My mother and many of her friends and other family members had this thing where you were just supposed to know when they were upset, what they were upset about, and how to fix it, even if you weren't the one who did it. They just sigh really loudly and I'd stop whatever I was doing and my heart would start racing. Oh crap, what did I do this time? I just woke up. Did I leave something out? What happened? And if we didn't guess right, including if we had to ask what's wrong, we'd spend the next 30 minutes to an hour getting our ass chewed out. We were just supposed to know how they wanted chores done, even if they hadn't been explained. It was always common sense. Didn't make growing up with undiagnosed autism any easier. Now, older, transitioning with my diagnosis and several friends like me, we're all in agreement that this expectation is stupid. Story 12. Embracing the person who asks the other out for a date should be the one who pays idea. You aren't fooling us. We all know men ask women out 99% of the time. It's a cop-out that sounds warm and fuzzy and fair on the outside, but results in the same thing of men always paying. It just makes you look cheap. Some men will put you into the wants a free meal category. The crazy thing is that most men are fine paying as long as you legitimately offer to pay. That's all we're looking for. Just someone to be considerate to us. You don't have to invent some convoluted logic to justify you not paying the bill. Just offer to us. That's all you have to do and we'll be like, she's cool, I'll pay. Story 13. I recently came out of a 9-year relationship where this kind of thing was standard practice. She got so comfortable giving me the silent treatment it slowly became permanent. She had some really serious mental health issues from a very troubled upbringing that she just refused to deal with. I tried to support her. I had all of the empathy for her, and all it did was drag me down to the place she wanted to stay. Misery. Toxic negativity. That's all she knew. It wasn't too long before I was completely broken and had no fight left in me. Every now and again I'd break and either give her the silent treatment back or worse, just verbally attack her and get it all off my chest, which she would then use as ammunition for another month-long bout of silence and disinterest. I just learned to accept it and find something to entertain myself by the end. We probably should have broken up a long time before we did, but I was just too weak to pull the trigger. Eventually, we got to a point where we were constantly finding excuses to have a go at each other, and as she experienced a bit of what it's like to feel hated within a relationship, she became really, really difficult. Staying out super late or not coming home. Not sure. She was getting into substances and partying, heavily flirting with anyone within our friendship group, constantly complaining about me to her friends and family and doing everything she could to make me out to be a villain. It had become a contest to see who could be the biggest schmuck, but only one of us was trying to win. When we finally broke up, she called my mother and told her she felt she was in danger and that I'd gone off the rails on substances. Never laid a finger on her in 9 years. Never threatened any kind of violence, hadn't taken any substances for at least a decade. Then as I left, she went on this massive rant about how I'd spent years gaslighting her into thinking she's depressed. She was depressed. Had been since early childhood, but her parents had never noticed, and she just learned to deal with it. It was very clear to me very early in the relationship that she's suffering from depression, and after learning about her past, we had countless tearful conversations where she would open up properly and see the situation she was in and admit she needs help. But she would never get to the point of being able to actually call someone or speak to a professional. The day we broke up was one of the hardest days of my life, but within a week I felt so much better. The anxiety and pressure of dealing with her mood swings still affects me today, but I'm quite good at recognizing it, and I've learned to use that as a tool. Financially, not spending all my money on crap for her to try to make her happy was a massive bonus to my mental health too. And for the first time in almost a decade, I bought myself new clothes. It's been almost 2 years since we broke up. I still think about her a lot, and I've not found myself comfortable enough to start looking for a new partner yet, but I'll get there one day, I hope. Lol, sorry for the long rant, y'all. Story 14. So I was talking to this girl a while ago. She left a great first impression, and the second day was a movie night at her place. I don't mind a bit of messiness. Heck, we all get a bit lazy from time to time, but this girl's flat was a freaking bomb site. It reeked of cat mess. There was food spilled on the floor and presumably left there, dirty clothes everywhere, and in a state of absolute disarray. Never thought it would give me the ick as much as it did, but it was enough for me to see that this was the norm, and I wanted nothing to do with it. I've never dated anyone, ever, just never had the time for it. I realized that my first dip into the water wasn't ideal, and it hasn't put me off trying, but Jesus. His lack of effort and presentation a big no. That, and I guess if anyone says they're going through a phase, not a chance. Get that away from me. I don't want my thing covered with the 20 guys before me. Story 15. Not taking ownership of literally anything they've done wrong. Getting angry and deflecting must take so much more energy than just saying, I'm sorry I did that. Condemning my interests and hobbies. You don't need to do them too, but there's no reason to crap on them. Being annoyed when I'm not with them 24/7 as if being in a relationship meant becoming connected like the friggin' human centipede. Starfish. For Christ's sakes, just do something. Not recognizing other women for their wins or positive qualities. You don't need to be better than everyone at everything. Using we split everything financially as a means to buy more crap at 50% off. Going anywhere near my phone. If another woman ever looks through my phone and I find out, I will literally toss them out the same day. I have zero use for any human who says they trust you but then needs to verify that by invading my privacy. Not respecting my alone time. Everyone needs time to themselves. Making me visit their relatives or a ludicrous amount more than them visiting mine. It doesn't have to be 50-50, but holy heck. 25 of a year versus 3.5 a decade is not acceptable. And the absolute most cringe, awful BS of all, removing all elements of surprise from a potential engagement by repeatedly asking and demanding to be married. Story 16. I had a casual lunch conversation with a female coworker today. She mentioned that she has this bad habit of deliberately going for guys who she thinks has red flags. She personally referenced bad communication to be a turn-on for her and that the guys who she had been with before who had all green flags are just boring. I guess that. And one more thing. If I have a zit or a blackhead and I'm telling you not to pop it, you don't pop it. I see the freaking puppy eyes and the desperation to squeeze it and it creeps me out. You know when toddlers get overexcited because their parents mention the word candy, and the child starts smiling and giggling while seemingly uncontrollably flailing their arms and quivering in their legs? Women that do this at the sight of a zit or a blackhead weird me the heck out. Story 17. Not bringing anything to the table, apart from their body and company, like they're some type of famous superstar that you have luck to be in company of, or they think they're a princess. I swear one time I met a beautiful lady. 2 months after phone call and chat, we met, and all she was doing was giving me an interview like, so, if it's Valentine's Day, for example, where would you bring me? Something fancy? What would we do together? Like, what the heck? Get the heck out. And she had a kid. Told her I understand why she's a young single mother and why she's single for 2 years. And she didn't even tell me before she was a mom. All that is pathetic. I had another one that was thinking I was a walking wallet and a servant, like, I have a package to get from the post office. Can you pick it up? I had groceries to buy. Can you go for me? I know a cool restaurant there. Let's go tonight. And of course, she expected me to pay for everything every time. That is pathetic, really. So I blocked her after 3 dates. I shouldn't have done it after first. First date night we had intimacy, so maybe it was because of that. Lol. So yeah, basically those types of spoiled, disrespectful behavior and way of thinking towards us. If you're enjoying the video, don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button for more videos like this. Story 18. They never take accountability for anything. And I mean truly take it to the chest. They could be wrong and still be condescending about something. I honestly think some women live in a different reality than the rest of us. Like there's this stuck-up girl in my job who slipped around to get hired and promoted, and she's rude as heck and unprofessional. I'll hear her gossiping to her girlfriends about how nobody's nice to her, blah, blah, blah. You're a disgusting lady when it comes to your demeanor. You're rude as heck, inconsiderate. You barely do your job. How could you possibly be asking that? I think the answer is they simply don't see anything wrong with avoiding feeling bad at any and every cost. Story 19. Creepy aunt vibes. I've never had a girlfriend or date put off these vibes, but I've encountered women who say or react specifically to young boys in a way that triggers a massive ick within me. To be clear, a woman saying a boy is cute or making a comment like, oh, he's going to be so popular with the girls when he grows up, does not, in and of itself, make me feel like they're putting out creepy aunt vibes. Those are statements I entirely recognize can be made innocently or playfully. What triggers me is less to do with what a woman says, but rather how some women react to seeing or being in the presence of young boys. A way that is hard to explain but is also glaringly obvious is just freaking creepy. I've seen women react in a way that I would describe as excited but also weirdly upsetting. Excited in a way that somehow feels manic or predatory. I don't know how to describe it properly, but I know it when I see it. And it gives me such a powerful, visceral ick that I usually don't ever want to interact with that woman ever again. Story 20. The whole obsession with men needing therapy. They're all obsessed with it. I've gone regularly since childhood as my parents really valued it. I'll ask women if they've gone and usually they're blindsided and have to admit they haven't. I've run into this several times, and the hypocrisy is wild. My other big ick is pretending to enjoy intimacy for a few months or a year before suddenly getting comfortable with never having it again, and blaming it on this or that, and so you man up, take accountability, address dutifully before slowly realizing that those are just moving targets and this can never be fixed. But anytime you ask in any way, you'll be gaslit or told you only want them for intimacy. Then you're stuck with a gut-wrenching decision to break up with your best friend. Also used to be your lover too. Over a lifetime, we were stuck with half of our relationship. The friendship, half. Story 21. I was really into this girl I worked with for a while. We went back to her place, and on the way, she intoxicatedly bragged about sleeping with all her friends and having competitions with them to see who could sleep with their boyfriends in the same room. My strong feelings for her vanished instantly. I think she genuinely liked me, but her confession made me feel so ordinary. It's funny. Sometimes when I get a bad feeling about someone, it's less about what they did and more about how incredibly foolish they could be to say something like that when we were just starting to connect. Another girl at work seemed to be flirting with me, but then she mentioned that she and another guy at work had talked about fooling around. Though they didn't go through with it because she's still a student. She flirts with everyone, so I'm not buying it. It just makes me feel like I'm just the next person she's briefly interested in. She's trouble and I'm not interested. Story 22. More just an everyday thing, but thinking cheating is okay because it was just physical. My ex cheated a lot. I found out pretty much immediately after and mutually broke up for unrelated reasons. And when I confronted her, she said, "Well, I loved you because you loved me so much. I don't have the connection with anyone else, but I'm young and felt like I should have been experiencing more." I was like, bro, what the heck? Just don't be in a relationship then? Like, it's so exceptionally selfish to basically trick someone into dating you so you can have emotional support while also leading a very active, intimate life without that person knowing. So anyways, that's basically the reason I now have extreme issues with trusting and letting people in my life. Story 23. Characterizing. I understand that everyone is guilty of this, but it especially gets me when my significant other conflates an issue that is going on right now into a problem with my character. It may very well be true at times, but once the conversation goes there, everything feels really hopeless. I see a pretty clear escalation from asking me to do the dishes to asking why I haven't done them, to asking why I never do the dishes, to asking why I never help her around the house, and finally calling me lazy. When all the beginning steps get skipped irrationally or just reach naturally, it feels like she has resentment already built up over this issue, and even if I go do the dishes, that is going to do very little to solve the problem. The problem now isn't that the dishes need to be done, it's that I need to change something about my character because I'm lazy. In the instance with the dishes, I'd have to remind myself that she means to just ask me to wash them. She might be overwhelmed with work and hates having to work around clutter to make her coffee. That problem is reasonable and solvable. I can stay in that headspace and problem solve, hopefully letting it bounce off me when she slips up a little. I say hurtful things sometimes too, and, the world ended a couple years back, so I count my blessings. Story 24. I have two things. Granted, not all women do these, and some men do these things too, but regardless, I'm not a fan of the ones who do these things. I hate when some of them act overly energetic for no reason when everyone else is calm, and laugh at the slightest mistake they make like they're some master comedian. Especially when they practically fold themselves in half, laughing because they said something like, "I toast my burnt," instead of "I burnt my toast." I don't find it funny. I find it annoying, and I'm tired of forcing myself to laugh to be polite and not make the situation more awkward. I'm already a socially awkward guy, and I don't need my reputation to tank even more because some girl complained to her friends that I'm mean and rude. On that note, the other thing I hate is when some of them gossip about the smallest things and blow them out of proportion for no reason. I have Tourette syndrome, and some of my tics can give people the wrong impression. I don't need a group of girls spreading the rumor that I'm playing myself in public because they don't understand what is actually happening. Story 25. Yeah, some parts of toxic behavior are genuinely bad learned habits. I would like to think that most people are decent and will quit it when they realize another person actually feels bad about it, are mature enough to accept that they're capable of doing wrong anyway. And if you're dating someone who hasn't learned that yet, good luck. As for the real reason women do it, terrible socialization that hasn't matured past teen years. It's not even out of malice, it's just the norm. This is what people do. Can't you take a joke? It's a joke. This is how me and my friends laugh with each other. It's not consciously about seeking acceptance, but in reality, if the entire social circle thought it was bad, it'd stop quickly. It's years of circular reinforcement boiling down to these habits that are perceived as generally okay within the group, even if they aren't. It's not about social acceptance because if it was, more people would stop. It's a genuine belief that this is just what people do, which is sad, and I hope they find better circles. What's toxic and something that can be forcefully shifted is a lack of willingness to learn and grow and accept wrongdoing. It's not worth the effort to try to make someone go through that, wow, I can be mean maturity arc. It won't happen without some introspection on their part. Just move yourself away. Story 26. When they don't hone their minds, it's usually off-putting for me. I'll get bored of that type, so I disengage. Another hard no is when a woman you don't really know wants you to pay entirely for a fancy meal. One of the little things that says, yeah, I don't care about you at all. The ones who don't want to work skis me out the most, though, and are often one and the same. Not being able to own a screw-up is huge, too, because I don't want some pile of yikes trying to gaslight me like they're Donald Trump if they do something off enough that it merits comment. Obvious fakes and adults who behave like children. I love to fall in love, honestly. That's not something most weirdos can fake, so it's pretty easy to curate the good from the bad. Story 27. Whenever you can clearly see that they're upset, had a bad day, or otherwise not in their normal state, and you ask, what's wrong? Are you okay? Are you alright? And you get a, nothing. It's fine, yeah, answer. I understand that sometimes you don't necessarily want to talk about your feelings, and that's totally okay. Had a rough day, but I don't want to talk about it, or need some space. Or something similar is a good answer. The fake fine or you should know and similar is stupid and childish. I'm not going to play a guessing game with you. Not advocating for themselves or making their opinions known. If I ask, where do you want to eat? Or what do you want to watch? Or what should we listen to? It's a genuine question. I am legitimately asking for your input, so whenever you say whatever or I'm easy or I don't care, then you better freaking mean it. Story 28. I was hanging out with this woman I've known since elementary school. She was all over me. Constantly complimentary, cuddly, trying to get me to sleep over regularly. All of a sudden I got sick and she can't understand why I want to be homesick for a couple days. Then when I finally start testing negative and reach out to see how she's doing, she immediately tells me she's back with her ex for the 20th time and really throws it in my face. Quoting him, being extremely flowery with how great the visit from ex was. Then I start getting cluster headaches, and obviously I'm not saying much to anyone because my life is a nightmare with clusters. This witch actually blocked me to retaliate against my extremely unlucky run of crappy health, I guess. LMFAO. Story 29. Baby talking to the point of incoherence to pets and anything else they might find cute. That and not having at least some opinion on any given topic. I don't care about X, or I don't know because I've never thought about. I'm not talking like obscure or esoteric type things. I'm talking about like when someone says I don't care about politics or I don't care about religion or, big bun things like this. Because it just shows to me that they live such a privileged life that they never actually had to care about any of this. Or they don't spend much of their time doing much thinking. Story 30. Not sure if this has been mentioned yet, but when you go out of your way to make worthwhile plans, which they agreed to, and they suddenly ignore you. Won't answer texts or calls on the day or time of. Simple heads up would have been fine. I waited about an hour at my community college parking lot. She lived about a 5 to 10 minute drive from there before calling it quits. Original plan was to have a small picnic at a park or lake. I prepped some food and brought a few snacks and one of the drinks she liked, Arizona tea plus lemonade. I don't want the food to go to waste. Made some pretty excellent sandwiches that day. So I ended up trying to reach out to some friends or coworkers, slightly embarrassed. Met up with a coworker and vented for a minute. Then we went mini-golfing for a bit to clear off my mind. Another ick I have is when they aren't clear about their feelings and how they want to be treated. Got myself into a friends with bad situation with the person I mentioned above, and she wanted to keep things low. I stupidly agreed to this arrangement, knowing I would probably just end up hurting myself at the end. Things never really worked out for us. I wanted a relationship, but she didn't. She was too hung up on her ex, preferred being spiked rather than being sober. Not sure if that's the proper term, and sometimes was disrespectful to me. Ended things on good terms, I would say, and while I wanted things to continue, even at that state, I knew for certain it was just best to break things off. Story 31. Overreaction. Not saying this in general. A specific occasion I've experienced only once. I'm an average-looking dude on the overweight side with a smile and confidence that wins almost anyone over. Anyway, I was in a local bar in Soho I thought was an old high school acquaintance. With a group of her friends. I walked over and said, "How are you?" and put my hand on her shoulder. She jumped out of her skin and looked at me like I had mistreated her. I immediately apologized and said I thought you were someone I knew. She looked disgusted and said, no. Maybe she thought he was going to ask her to join his multi-level marketing scheme. That level of fear is understandable. Story 32. All of the women I've ever dated enough to live with have a bathrobe. In all cases, this robe would be washed maybe once every month or so, 2 or 3 weeks if I'm being generous. The robe gets put on immediately after waking up until other clothes are put on. So in other words, wake up, put on robe, take a dump, sit around the house, take a shower, and then put the dirty, unwashed, month-stink robe right back on after getting out of the shower. Like if I'm going to bother taking a shower, I'm only going to put on clean clothes afterwards. If I didn't like smelly women, I'd make a big fuss out of it. But all these women seem to think this was perfectly normal. Story 33. For me, the ick is when women buy into all of these things society influences them to be or say or do without putting any critical thinking behind any of it. Examples. Societal conditioning and the mass consumption of true crime documentaries have convinced women that they should constantly be worried about attackers, whether we're talking about getting taken in a parking lot or spiked at a bar. I understand needing to be aware of your surroundings, but some women seem downright paranoid about something that is statistically improbable. Girl boss attitude. There are women out there buying into this mindset while simultaneously not earning a wage that would even allow them to support themselves without a spouse or roommate. I don't know what kind of boss doesn't have the financial means to stand on their own 2 feet. Women who use progressive feminism when it benefits them and traditional gender roles when it benefits them. Women who spend recklessly just because part of being a woman is being a shopaholic, apparently. It is taught as a social norm. I feel bad because I don't think that most of these things are really their fault, but these are constructs that have been set up and many women just haphazardly fall into these traps. I believe that women will have to break some of these things down to really advance and achieve the equality that they desire or deserve. Story 34. The hypocrisy, lies, and refusal to use sound logic and rationale in communication, along with the double standard of polarized behaviors, are frustrating. For example, some women can be arrogant about being desirable partners, but the moment something doesn't go their way, they feign vulnerability and play the victim. This is just one example of many. These women, and it's important to note, not all women, will manipulate the narrative of their current situation to always appear to be in the most advantageous position. Integrity is irrelevant to them, just like anything else that obstructs their pursuit of what they want. Story 35. Had an ex bad-mouthing one of the women on her street behind the woman's back. The thing is, my ex thought that she could say what she wanted and nothing would happen. Later that night, that neighbor showed up at my ex's house and started yelling at my ex for what she had been saying. My ex was then trying to hide behind me, and I just said, "Don't hide behind me. You caused this mess, and you have to face the consequences." My ex-girlfriend had a look on her face like a child who had just been scolded after the neighbor finished yelling and left. Story 36. When minor things happen that make them cry. I wasn't necessarily raised not to cry, but it's kind of something I only feel the urge to do when something serious happens. Like if someone passed away. When someone cries over something like a bad day at work or dropping a pan full of food they worked hard making, I really never know how to react because my default reaction is, damn it, not this intense expression of anguish. Most of the women I've known closely will just well up with tears and start sobbing or shouting about how stupid and incapable they are for having either been incapable of handling the hard day at work or for having lacked the coordination to not drop the food. Like it becomes self-cruelty, and they end up needing a lot of reassurance. These outbursts are hard for me to respond to. Story 37. Lie. Particularly lying about not liking or not being able to do something, when they mean they don't want to do it for or with you. Before you throw your mind in the gutter in this particular case, I once talked with a girl who had some issues, including agoraphobia apparently, but she didn't go out much. The reason why she flaked on me twice out of 4 times when I asked her out. The other 2 was because she forgot the day or where she was supposed to go when she got in the bus. But she had no problem getting on a full bus for a 30-minute ride to a different town to spend the night with her best friend. I definitely dodged a bullet there. There were a lot of red flags that I ignored, but still feel sorry for the 3 to 4 months wasted. Other icks. No accountability. Don't hold it against me logic. Asking for attention but never giving it first. Being rude to staff. Long, fake nails. Story 38. It has been a long time because I've been married for 23 years, but when I was in my younger days and had my own very humble apartment, I found it very rude and off-putting when women I brought there went through my stuff and talked about it. Like a dinner day where we ended up on my place to chill or fool around. I had several occurrences where they either came out and talked about the stuff in my medicine cabinet or changed my toilet paper roll to their liking. Sometimes after they left, I would realize they had moved stuff around. One woman in particular, I dated her off and on and knew she was bad news. She just was really great in bed. Was notorious for going through my dresser or nightstand. They never asked me anything or said anything, but I would find things rifled through or out of place. When I confronted her about it, she lost her crap and accused me of cheating on her because I was hiding things. I wasn't. Found out later she was dating someone else while we were seeing each other. Shocker. Story 39. Wearing fake eyelashes. Spending money on lifts instead of going to the gym, like we can tell her their back is fake. Getting fake melons, then flaunting them around, showing them off like we can't tell it's implants. I seriously don't understand the whole showing off a doctor work thing. We know that's not your body. Don't get me started on everyone getting their lips done, walking around looking like a doll. What else? Wearing so much makeup their face no longer matches the color of their neck. Biggest thing I'd say though is the double standard. I'm sure we've all seen or been in a situation where we said to ourselves, heck, imagine if the roles were reversed. Women act like they're a blessing from God, and the older I get, the more I'm convinced it's the opposite. Ellen grown women doing dumb TikToks. That crap is super cringe. Story 40. I mean, this is my wife's behavior, and I don't think every woman does this, but whenever she messes up, like being inconsiderate, hurtful, jealous, or even aggressive, and I react to it, especially if I get really mad, she turns it upside down and becomes the victim as fast as possible. Starts crying and justifying her actions. I mean, we all mess up sometimes, and I still love her with all my heart. Also, this is probably a coping mechanism to avoid conflict when she realizes she did something wrong, and if you consider her upbringing, it was probably the easiest way out of her mother's cruelty. But it is not nice becoming the villain every time.
Boyfriends. What happened to the guy she told you not to worry about? He got her pregnant within a month of us breaking up and gave her herpes. Now they're divorcees and fight and bicker constantly. I remember that phone call when she called to let me know she had herpes and that I should get checked. I smugly said, I don't need to. I've only ever slept with one other person. Then I went on a year-long deployment to Iraq and then returned and dated you for a year. Unless you were sleeping around on me, which I know you weren't, and I don't need to. Her silence was hilarious. Got her to admit she slept around on me. Story 2. Different girls, mostly. There's always that guy. Number 1, one came out as gay years later. Nothing happened before that, though. Number 2, she went away for a weekend with a girlfriend of hers. The guy she said not to worry about just happened to be there, at the same house with all her college friends. She at least had the decency to break up with me when she got back before her friends told me what actually happened. Number 3, she made out with a guy at a party, but he totally initiated it, and what was she supposed to do? Say no? Stop it? That would be absurd, right? Number 4, this one was one of those we were on a break situations, but she left the club we both happened to be at to go see his car. I ended up giving her a lift home. I didn't enjoy that. Number 5, during a relationship that was supposed to be a temporary long-distance relationship, the guy showed up at the airport to surprise my girlfriend with roses. When I went to fetch her, they got married. Number 6, she made out with a dude in her bedroom while I was in the lounge and hadn't finished making out by the time I walked in on them. She married him. I've been single for a while now. Story 3. It was a longtime friend. He was always interested and had a couple of times proposed that they get back together, but nothing was ever established to begin with, by putting her in misleading and awkward situations in order to guilt-trip her. Examples include invitations to public dance classes that turned out to be private tango lessons. A simple bite out to eat was actually reservations for a high-end restaurant, and threats of throwing away expensive jewelry that he offered her if she didn't accept them. When she and I got together initially, the first thing he did was break off his own engagement, thinking there was a chance for us to break up. She and I dated for a few years and they stayed friends. I finally popped the question and he ran to her parents crying about it. He eventually found another woman and married her. We even got invited to the wedding and has since dropped all contact. Story 4. She had intimacy with him in the back of one of the zoo transport vans with a shared work toy, which I guess, given the industry we all worked in, was the most appropriate of toys. Eventually, I found out. She immediately dumped me. She told him they were now exclusive, and he immediately dumped her as he had no interest in a relationship and just enjoyed the thrill of having intimacy with someone else's girlfriend. He went back to his homeland and continued in the industry. She sent messages asking for us to meet and talk, which I ignored. She fell into a huge depression and attempted to end it all. Oh dear, how sad. Story 5. She kept hiding the fact she was seeing him in private without my knowledge after we had a discussion about it like adults, stating that it didn't feel comfortable. I saw a text message while she was driving and it showed up on her notifications on the screen. I was in the passenger seat. We got into a heated argument and we were in an on-again, off-again relationship. I was an emotional dunce when it came to romantic feelings and was in a toxic situation, realizing I was just an option for her and would always be second best. The feeling sucked and it took 2 years to recover from my emotional trauma and mental state. That was 5 years ago. Now I'm happily married. My advice, regardless of your gender, is to take your time dealing with your emotions and trauma. A relationship won't make you happy and should not be an excuse for why. It's nice. It feels nice. Everyone wants it in some shape or form, but your happiness is how you create it. Be yourself and be happy. Thank you for reading my rant. Story 6. She said he reminds her of her father. He's like 37 and that he's acting pathetic and desperate for her. She said that he gives her gifts for no reason and that it's awkward. She claimed he creeps her out and sometimes scares her, that he has his friends and a brother stalking her. He acted out plenty of times. One of the instances was when he and his 35-plus-year-old criminally convicted friends barged into her flat. She has a 3-year-old daughter and started making a big fuss about why she's not into him. Police were called. He claimed that if he cannot have her, then no man ever will. Despite tons of his childish, weird, and straight-up reportable acts, she continued being friends with him. She claimed I was the only normal person in her life at some point. All that happened in the span of like 2 months or less earlier this year. Now I suspect that he moved in with her. Either she loves toxic relationships or I don't understand women like at all. Story 7. She left me for him. He waited to graduate from school first, broke it off with me, and was already celebrating an anniversary with him before we were even done. I think. I'm not sure. Overall, I think it worked out really well for them. They got married, have a kid. Seems like she made the right choice, but it really destroyed me for a long time and probably still has an effect on me to this day. Used to be really angry about it, but given the results, I can't stay mad about it. Plus, people change, and that's not a problem, but still, be honest with people and don't cheat. It's pretty crappy. Story 8. She promised he was just a friend. She said that since he lives in the UK and we're in the USA, there's nothing to be worried about. Imagine my surprise when she broke up with me and then moved to a different country to be with him. Last I heard, they only dated for a year or two, then she got fired from her remote job, broke up with him, and is now living with her parents back in the USA. All of this happened after she wouldn't move 2 states away to live with me. I dodged a nuke there. Story 9. An old friend of hers came back into her life, and after some talks and multiple "we're just friends" assurances, we ended up breaking up. We tried the whole friends with benefits thing for a bit, but after making the huge mistake of asking if the other guy was bigger than me, to which she answered honestly and in probably what was too much detail, we just got out of high school, and like most people that age, my self-esteem was not the greatest, especially when it came to what's going on downstairs. I decided that it just wasn't going to work out. They got into a relationship and I blocked her on Facebook. Years later, I see the guy working at Dave & Buster's. Being friendly, I ask, "How's it going?" To which he responded with, "Well, not good." I apologized, saying that sucks, and then walked away. Every now and again, I'll think about her, but upon deeper reflection, I realized we were obviously going on 2 separate paths at that point in life, and although it hurt at the time, it was definitely for the best. Story 10. My wife met a new friend at church who we'll call Charles. They started spending time together at church and then started meeting outside of church. I raised my concerns and was told that I had nothing to worry about. She told me jealousy isn't attractive. She had an affair with Charles. This was while I was working nights and going to school during the day. I found out and she was extremely apologetic and said she made a mistake. I was torn on whether to stay with her or not because we have kids. I ultimately decided to stay and try to work things out. Charles was married also, and he and his wife decided to work things out as well. This was 18 years ago, and my wife and I are still married. I'd even say happily married. Still think about it from time to time, even though I decided to forgive her. I guess forgiving and forgetting are different things. Charles passed away of brain cancer around 8 or 9 years ago. Story 11. With this girlfriend, pretty fair. The first was a music producer, but my girlfriend legitimately isn't his type. They are actually way too similar with a Gemini energy and fight like actual siblings over stuff like reverb math and audio plugins. The second was a dealer, but despite his butch, neutral looks, the man is proudly gay as heck. I met a few of the twinks he'd been with during our time in that area. Since we've both been cheated on a couple of times in relationships before, we genuinely aren't interested in messing around in our 30s. Story 12. They just had their second child. She started cheating when I, who never wanted children, was fostering her 7-year-old cousin before the rest of her family was too messed up to inconvenience themselves. The new guy won't have anything to do with the cousin. It was such a ridiculous situation. It basically just felt like I had dodged a bullet. I feel bad for the cousin, who now has no one caring about him, and I feel bad for her because literally all of her friends took my side. I asked them not to, so she wound up isolated. People make their decisions, though. Story 13. She cheated on me after I basically was her therapist for over a year, got her a new job, paid for most of her expenses, and took her to Japan. She cheated because she felt not loved after we had a fight. I found out she started chatting with a dude that tried to kiss her once while I was standing next to her, almost a year ago. Her best friend, who told me I should not worry about him and that she would never want to lose me as a friend because I'm so nice, basically hosted her while she had her escapades with him. It broke my trust and loyalty forever. Still recovering. We basically always had a great time. Same interests, great intimacy, and she told me 2 days before cheating that she wants to marry me. I later realized I was in a relationship with a narcissist that love-bombed me so she could feel love. Story 14. I used to date this girl. She had a best friend, a huge nerd, not her type, and I wasn't worried at all. They knew each other since middle school. I get to know him, we became friends. Fast forward almost 5 years later, she broke up with me. She had an affair and left me for him, but that's a different story. Most of the friends I got to know through her never even tried to reach out to me, but he did. We met and talked, and after a few beers, he told me how a year before, while I was on a family holiday in Egypt, she intoxicatedly tried to have intimacy with him, but he turned her down. I fully believe him, mostly because he cannot lie for anything, so Yeah, he turned out to be a better human being than she. Story 15. I was dating this girl that I was madly in love with. The sun rose and set with her. If she wanted the moon, I would find a way to get it for her. We were together for 2 years. Then one day she started acting weird. Wouldn't want to talk, one-word answers, Then one Saturday night we attended her best friend's birthday party. I met her there. The moment I walked in the door, she was doing her best not to be by me. If I tried to talk to her, she would end the conversation as soon as possible. I finally got fed up and asked what was going on. She took me away from the crowd and told me she was uncomfortable with me being there. Needless to say, I was shocked. When I inquired as to why she would be uncomfortable with me, her boyfriend being at the party with her, she pointed out a certain fellow and explained that he was interested in her, and my being there made the situation uncomfortable. Not gonna lie, folks, that statement cut me to the bone, but I maintained, looked her in the eyes, and said, "Okay, well, let me save you from your discomfort." And I left. I cried in the car on the way home. About 3 months later, when I started coming out of my funk, she called, wanting to know how I was doing. I lied and told her I was doing great and asked how I could be of assistance. That's when she told me she missed me. I asked why. She said she missed the way I treated her, how attentive I was, and how I was always considerate of her feelings and her well-being. I asked what happened with her new boy. Folks, it was a story as old as time. He had a girlfriend and just wanted to get with her. She said when she found out she was mad, she asked him why he didn't let her know he had a girlfriend. His answer was, "You didn't ask." She then told him, "I broke up with my boyfriend for you." He replied, "I didn't ask you to do that. You did that on your own." Now she was seeking forgiveness and wanted to give it another try. I was tempted because I was still madly in love with her, but she showed her true colors and I just couldn't take the chance on her leaving when the next new shiny thing came up. I told her no, because now I couldn't trust her, and a relationship without trust is no relationship at all. Story 16. Oh, you mean his buddy's girlfriend that he said was just a friend? Yeah, they're married now. The last I heard, he was largely left out of a triad with his wife and another woman at a rent fair, so that's funny as heck. Or my ex-husband, who told me not to worry. He just fell asleep on my coworker's couch after walking her home on New Year's. He impregnated her, and they're married now. The kid was premature with a bunch of health issues and has visibly aged them both. Or an ex-friend who was a bit too friendly with my boyfriend, and I was made out to be crazy for being jealous. They are married now. I honestly wish them happiness, as I think they're well suited to each other. And I don't mean that in a negative way either. Needless to say, I have very few people I trust, and the second I'm told not to worry about someone, I most definitely become hyper-vigilant to that person and the person telling me not to worry. Story 17. Not me, but I had a friend, ex, who got a crush on another longer-standing friend's girlfriend. The longer-standing friend was a deeper friendship, from basically their teens. At one point, we met at an event, and I told my longer-standing friend to watch out for ex because he had a crush on his girlfriend, and I knew they were hanging out a lot. The friend's girlfriend somehow heard from afar and lashed out at me, asking if I thought they didn't talk and didn't trust each other and that I was overstepping and should just back off. Fast forward 1.5 years. I still talk with ex, but we're less friends, and he and that friend's girlfriend are together. One of the longest called-it moments I ever had. Story 18. About a month before our relationship, I had a one-night stand. Literally a month before my girlfriend and I started talking. Never spoke to the other person again. Well, the other guy found out about it through mutual friends and actually knew the one-night stand girl also. So he proceeded to tell my girlfriend around 2 or 3 months into our relationship that I had actually cheated on her with this chick and had slept with her after we started dating. He told her she could introduce them to prove it. I believed it was an attempt to be a hero, so she would be so grateful that she'd finally want to be with him or something. They'd just been friends for probably 10 years. I could tell for weeks that something wasn't right, but she'd just say everything was fine. I remember when she finally told me. I actually called him and he was intoxicated and cried on the phone that he was sorry and admitted everything. Lol. They never spoke again, but it did do damage because it seemed like she could never fully trust me after that. We broke up around a year later, and trust issues were one of the main problems, even though I was always 100% faithful. Story 19. One of my roommates in college would hang out with my girlfriend one-on-one when we first started dating. We were all friends before, so it wasn't an issue at all because they did that before we started dating. The thing that was weird was he would intentionally not say that she was with him. Multiple times I would later talk to my girlfriend and she would very casually mention something like, "Oh, I went to the library with him." After a couple of instances of this happening, it weirded out my girlfriend because why was he not telling me? So she decided to tell me before she went to go get coffee with him one afternoon and wanted me to ask some probing questions to him afterward to see if he ever mentioned she was there. He did not. We determined that he liked her too and was trying to undermine us, but it just didn't work because we actually talked to each other and didn't hide things. After that incident, she decided to stop hanging out with him alone. To her, they were just hanging out casually. To him, they were sneaking around behind my back and it just kind of bothered her. It also bothered me, but only made me upset with him, not her. Both of our friendships with them became strained and have never really recovered, even now, years later. Not quite the don't worry about him scenario, but it's the closest I have and so unlike anything I've ever experienced. Story 20. Not a boyfriend, but a girlfriend hoping to offer solace to the boyfriends. I've never been the kind of girl who had a lot of guy friends outside of family. I've just had gone along with women and worked in or went to school in female-dominated fields. After I made a major career shift, I found myself at a job with a lot more men, and honestly, it enriched my life to be able to experience so many new people, especially a coworker I clicked with instantly, Luke. We got along instantly like true siblings, and we would hang out here and there, but mostly just made a really good team at work and had some good deep talks. After one hangout where we got a few drinks, I came home to my boyfriend being really upset that he had been worried for months that I was having a crazy office affair. I truly have had more excitement at the thought of a pap smear than the thought of Luke. After we talked about it and made sure he wasn't asking me to change my contact or do anything regarding Luke, he just wanted to meet him if he could and didn't press because he believed if it turned into anything else that I'd handle it. They met and he met his girlfriend, even got along, and he truly never seemed to worry about it again. Sometimes it really is nothing. You just have to be willing to communicate and to ask with intent to understand, not accuse. We've had ups and downs, but mostly going strong in 5 years, so take it how you will for your own circumstances. This isn't to downplay some of the atrocities here. I'm so sorry people have been so cruel to you guys. Story 21. She moved back home across the US to be with him. She ran into him on a vacation back to her hometown. A couple of months later, I saw him posted on a social media video that I wasn't supposed to see. I put two and two together and broke up with her. I told some mutual friends, only to find out she had told some that we were already broken up and neglected to tell me this fact. Less than a month later, she was pregnant. The timing was very close that friends had questions, and so did I. Not mine, thankfully. On to better things. Story 22. Not a boyfriend, but a husband. It was my ex-wife and my best friend or cousin. Had a history of getting together with women that I had dated or had expressed interest in dating, and even admitted on a number of occasions to wanting to sleep with them to prove that they were cheaters. It had been in my ex's ear, causing damage here and there, until she decided to leave me. He left his wife that same day, and the two of them wound up at the same mutual friend's house to comfort each other. I had confronted her a few months before the end about what was going on with the two of them, as there was a lot of secretive texting, and I had caught some damning evidence that it existed. Of course, I got that nothing is going on. There's nothing to worry about. If you're enjoying the video, don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button for more videos like this. Story 23. The girlfriend's perspective. The first time my ex got cruel towards me was the night I met the guy you shouldn't worry about. We were at my ex's favorite bar. A guy walked in and my friends and I decided to wing the single girl as he was gorgeous. At some point I was talking to him as he had entered the girls' group to connect more with my friend. My ex walks in and sees us. I smile because I'm excited to introduce him. I was blindly in love with my ex. Then I see the curtain drop and his eyes get that look that I'm very familiar with. Essentially a signal that I will get shouted at, punches will be thrown at the wall, and I will be told to move out of our apartment, followed by reconciliation the next morning. I run over to him to try to fix it before it becomes too bad and explain that there's nothing to worry about. We're ringing my friend. He doesn't believe it at all and starts telling me what a disgrace I am to him. It then says that we're going home. One of my friends sees what is going on and knows about how our fights have been before. She comes over and says that there's no way that I'm leaving with him. I'm coming to her place and can stay in her guest room. The ex and his friend got extremely upset that she's stepping in, and my ex just leaves the place without another word. I stay with my friends at the bar. At this point, I'm very accustomed to the ex's reaction patterns and explain that there's really nothing to do. Nor have I found what sets it off. It can be anything. In this case, I am assuming that he was feeling very jealous and insecure, but I will be safe to go home, even though he will be very angry. I was wrong. When I came home, he was there. I went into bed and he started to shove me out of bed. I told him to stop, then he got up, came over to me, and pushed me out of the room and into the wall in the living room. Later the next weekend, he does the same, but for a different reason. I don't even remember what the reason was that he got angry again. I stayed at a friend's couch for 2 nights and luckily found an apartment I could move into the same weekend. That is unheard of in the city where I live. 1 to 1.5 months later, I run into this guy from the bar at a day concert. We quickly catch up and decide to keep in touch throughout the day as we were both out enjoying the sun and we'll grab a few drinks with friends after dinner. He ends up meeting me and my friends for a few drinks after dinner. It's a very nice evening, lots of laughter and easy going. Now we've been seeing each other for 4-ish months. We're seeing each other exclusively. He's nothing but patient with me as I'm quite reserved and scared of trusting my judgment of people at this point. I am moving very slowly in our connection. He's giving me space to get back on my feet and prioritize my career and sports while we meet a few times a week, telling me that he's serious about me and that I don't have to rush anything. At the same time, he's not saying that I'm the most perfect woman he has ever met or that we're meant to be. As my ex did immediately when we met, we like each other and are figuring things out step by step. So I guess the ex was in the right to be worried. Story 24. Coming at this from the female's point of view. I had a friend who I really thought was just a platonic friend and a nice person. It didn't seem to me that he was crossing boundaries or acting unusual, so I genuinely thought there was nothing to worry about and said so to my husband. I thought he seemed too friendly and too clean with me. I almost laughed it off, but my husband and I took a short break and this friend found out. Within 2 days, he asked me out and said he had loved me since we first met and he wanted to be together. He also said he thought I'd say yes as he believed deep down I loved him too. I simply reply that while I think he's a lovely guy, I'm sorry, but I'm trying to fix my marriage and I'm not interested and don't love anyone but my husband. He took that to mean I was trying to fix the marriage out of duty and that I said, I'm sorry, but, because I did actually love him, but I felt I owed it to my marriage to fix it. I shut him down and said I do not love him. I considered him as a friend, and the fact that he was so quick to try and replace my husband shows me my husband was correct with his gut feeling. While if he respects boundaries, we can talk as friends, I wasn't comfortable with him coming to stay at my home anymore. Story 25. We were only about 6 months into our relationship, and she said not to worry. Then I saw him smack her behind. I confronted her about it later, saying what I had seen and was honest about how it made me feel and asked for honesty in return. She confirmed that she allowed the flirtation and there was, without a doubt, intimate tension, but that it hadn't gone to that point yet. I said, look, I'm not going to make you stay with me if you don't want to be with me, but I just didn't want to be cheated on and don't want you to have to live with the guilt of being the cheater. Over 10 years later, we're married with kids and he has faded into obscurity. Reading this post was the first time I had thought of him in years. Honestly, I hope he's doing okay. He was pretty depressed when she told him she wanted to commit to me and see where our relationship led. Last we heard, he had moved interstate. That would have been 6 years or so ago. Glad I didn't take the easy route and end things. She's been the best thing to ever happen to me and given me my 2 most precious gifts. Story 26. When they can admit, yeah, I guess in the right circumstances, maybe I would date him, it's far healthier for the relationship and everyone can move on. Also, in my experience, they don't end up dating that guy, but even if they did, everything was on the up and up and it's far less galling. They go out of their way to gaslight, insult the guy and the entire premise. Are you kidding me? He's got the weird big head. No, absolutely never. He's so stupid. That's the giant red flag because they do end up dating that guy. Story 27. I'm a single father now who probably won't communicate with his mother till she gets back from military training in a little over a month. To keep it short, I tried communicating with her, and when she finally told me about him, she said they've done nothing and was debating if it's worth telling me since she didn't think he's worth it. Long distance, leaving the base, etc. Now I guess he's worth it and I'm not. I haven't heard from her, really, for almost a month while I'm taking care of her son. If you're in a similar position, trust your gut. Good luck. Story 28. Well, she didn't even want to admit she liked him, even when I directly asked, considering she was always texting and spending time with him because he was a work colleague. She said, he's like you, but also like me. It's so crazy. We had completely different personalities, so totally. Surely he's not flirting with someone in a relationship and being exactly what she wants him to be. I find out she went to his basketball game with his family without telling me that was the case. This was days after she tells me she wants a sudden break from talking out of the blue due to her health, both physically and mentally. Next minute she texts me she wants to break up. What a surprise when I see her post herself in a day with her friend 2 weeks after her health issues. That was the end of a 6-year relationship. Gotta love a breakup text followed by an immediate monkey branch to her friend. It's been a year now and they're convinced they found true love. Sucks because I was going to propose that year, but I guess it was a sign from the universe not to. Story 29. She was away in a scout camp. She was one of the adult instructors or leaders for the youth organization and told me not to worry about this guy she always hangs out with there. One night I was on the phone with her and he was walking her back to her tent. I could tell she just wasn't interested in talking to me. She was always messaging him too. Anyway, as soon as she starts the university, we have an argument over the phone and she, in my mind, overreacts and dumps me. A day later, she's with a guy. Come Christmas time, about 4 months later, I finally healed, feel confident, and I'm back to my old self again. She calls me out of the blue, making amends. Turns out he cheated on her at a party with a girl he told her not to worry about. She even said she fully realized the irony. Anyway, we had insanely good, crazy ex-intimacy for a few months, and then she eventually met someone nice and settled down with him. I wish her the best. I have my own family now that I love, and this was nearly a decade ago. Story 30. She probably dated him, but something didn't quite match up, but she likes his company. He's still on the team, but he's not getting playing time right now. Yeah, she's probably giving him some compensation occasionally to keep him on the team and maintain patience. Maybe letting him go in to spike the ball and run out some clock that Saturday night when you had an argument and she went out with her friends. You know that's what's going on, but if you remove emotions from it, it makes sense. She's measuring the field, seeing who the best contender is. It's not without reason. That's kind of what dating is. There just should be cleaner breaks and better communication. Story 31. The guy started as my friend. My girlfriend started including him when we were supposed to do things together, even supposedly romantic things. My girlfriend invited him to replace me on vacations after my work schedule suddenly changed and I couldn't go. They come back, and my girlfriend creates relationship drama to end us. My girlfriend moves in with him a week afterward, and she claims they're getting married. He comes home from work about a year later and finds another friend moved into their house because he couldn't afford her lifestyle. The partner I replaced her with and I have been together for almost 30 years now, and she's on her 3rd or 4th marriage now and is still looking for someone to support her lifestyle. Story 32. I was actually the guy not to worry about. I became super good friends with a girl who had been with a guy for over a year. I had a super hard crush on her, and something definitely could have happened under different circumstances. He was a schmuck. He openly threatened to end it all in a dramatic fashion if they were arguing. If she took too long in a public bathroom, he would kick the door in and shout for her, and I even suspect he may have beaten her a time or two. I was honestly just waiting for it to implode. She had asked me straight up if I liked her, and I said yes, and she said the same to me. But she wasn't the type to cheat, and I would have hated for anything to happen on bad terms. Time kind of kept going on. I met someone else who I'm now married to and have a beautiful son with. She actually passed away from cancer a few years back, and she was with someone else at the time which she seemed super happy with. So at the very least, she got away from that schmuck. Story 33. First guy I shouldn't worry about. She had intimacy with him while we were together, so we broke up, and she had intimacy with the second guy I shouldn't worry about. We get back together and break up again. Then she had intimacy with the first guy I shouldn't worry about, plus a third guy I shouldn't worry about. After all of this, I show my intelligence and get back together with her. We break up, and she had intimacy with the second guy I shouldn't worry about, plus a fourth guy I should definitely not worry about. Getting my Mensa degree at this point, I got back together with her. That time, after a while, she just one day tells me she wants to have intimacy with a guy I shouldn't worry about, so we broke up. Haven't talked to her since. Story 34. I was in a long-distance relationship. We talked for an hour or more every day over Skype. I never had an issue with any of her friends. This one guy she told me about was a lot like me. She couldn't wait for me to meet him. I was able to visit for 2 weeks, 2 months after she met him. Near the end of the visit, I asked, when am I going to meet this guy? She replied, well, I was not going to say anything, but I can't lie to you. One night, a bunch of us went out and we ended back at his flat with everyone. I was too intoxicated and was going to taxi home. He said just spend the night in his bed. He was going to sleep on the couch. He didn't sleep on the couch. After I got home, I broke up with her. Story 35. He kept pushing the boundaries, and one night we were having game night at my girlfriend's in my place. He kept making overly dirty comments directly to her in front of the group of 8 to 10 people. I pulled her into another room and said, 2 options. You kick him out or I do, and I'm not going to be nice about it. She asked him to leave. We started to make a scene, and I ended up having to physically remove him from the house, carried his butt outside, and set him down like a toddler. Last I heard, he married a woman with the same name that looks very similar to my girlfriend, and then they got really fat. They've only gotten regular fat, and we were coming up on 10 years together, so I'm calling it a win. Story 36. Yeah, luckily in my dating life, I had no tolerance for a guy she told me not to worry about. Major red flag to me. Too much baggage. Happily married now. My wife and I, before we met each other, both had people we were talking to, but both dropped anyone else we had as soon as we made things official. She had guys try to hit her up, which she was very open to me about, and quickly shut those guys down, either by just straight up telling them or blocking them if they were persistent. The same happened on my end. I guess that stuff is rare these days, but I found a girl with the same instincts as me, so we were able to cut through the BS real quick. I guess that's clearly hard to find these days. Lol. Story 37. She and I had been dating in high school. I'd left for college and she joined the military the following year. There was a guy that kept paying her attention, but she always said it was no big deal. Unwanted physical contact, always wanting to go out, comments about her looks, etc. I went to visit her at base, and he was trying to outdo me the whole evening. Buying drinks, one-upping stories. The glances she gave him were enough to finally make it click. The fact that she included him in that evening should have been a huge red flag to begin with. I broke up with her shortly thereafter, and she was officially dating him on social media within 24 hours. What a gut punch. But validation for ending things. They married after a few months and divorced after 2 short years. Lesson learned and bullet dodged. Story 38. My ex convinced themselves we would break up because of a number of things that weren't true, which we could have fixed with communication. They started hanging out with this online friend a lot more. A couple of months later, the two of them were spending more time together than my partner and I were, watching my partner's favorite anime alone together and giving some lame excuses to why I wouldn't want to watch it. The reason being it was queer-coded, and we were in a queer relationship, without telling me or asking if I wanted to watch it. We broke up a couple of weeks after moving into an apartment together. The two of them were dating just over a month later, but started doing video calls every day just a few days after we broke up. I wasn't able to move out for a few months, so I got to hear the whole sprouting of what was probably already there. The whole reason we broke up was avoidable with communication, but they gave up, so what could I do alone? I was being emotionally cheated on, and the two of them are still together 8 months later. Story 39. She cheated on me with that guy, then asked me if I was into open relationships. I said yes because I loved her. She then fell in love with the guy and never stopped seeing him when she wanted to, but she didn't want to admit it. I broke up with her. Then she broke up with him after she fell in love with some rich guy in another country hundreds of kilometers from her place. The fun part is, when we were together, a 1-hour drive was too far and I was too old. The new guy is like 5 years older than me and it takes her like 6 hours to get there. I started therapy and I'm fine now. Story 40. She spent all night talking to some guitarist at a local gig. Don't worry about him. She actively avoided me on the night out and spent her time with the guitarist. At the end of the night, she had a huge argument with me and tried to gaslight me into thinking I was avoiding her. We ended up breaking up, and yes, you know where this is going. They started dating within a week, and after a few weeks, she realized the guy was dirt and asked me to take her back. Backed off and kept my distance. We reconnected after university. She was pregnant with her second child and no baby daddy. I kept my distance and just remained friends. We became good friends, eventually, after she met her husband. I was even invited to the wedding. Story 41. First major relationship. Together for 4 years and all was going well until she started her first job out of university, where a new temp guy suddenly became the only person she wanted to talk about or talk to. I voiced some concerns, but they were brushed off, along with any attempts to do couple things together anymore. Thanks to her staying logged into apps across multiple devices, what was actually going on became painfully obvious when she'd leave the room to chat on her phone and her iPod Touch would vibrate and flash up with his responses. The best part is that we tried to patch things up, and then I eventually learned that she had told him not to worry about me as well, and that was just some obsessive roommate. I had a lot of satisfaction telling him otherwise. Story 42. He had intimacy with her after they went to a conference and had coffee. A 2-year relationship led to a cheating-driven breakup. Her depression got worse, and he forced her to get on the pill because he doesn't feel anything with protection. She promised him she would not see me again. She did. She told me they decided to part, but I'm inclined to think he left her. Lol. What makes me angry the most is that a radical feminist would start taking the pill out of love and relinquish control over her body for a man, or said man to treat her like crap. In the end, he mostly likely is still doing menial jobs and studying theatrics, or theater, or acting, or whatever. Meanwhile, I got better, started therapy, and I've been going to the gym regularly for 2.5 years. So okay, he had a bigger Johnson and a 17-centimeter height difference with me, but in the end, I'm going to have the bigger salary. I'm still bitter about it now. I'm disappointed and have trust issues. He probably does not. The morality of that story is you'd rather be an obnoxious and uncaring schmuck rather than a sensitive one that will get hurt. Story 43. We've been dating for over a year in high school. She forced us into a double date for prom, kind of last minute. Soon after, but before prom, she missed a date with me because we were watching Forrest Gump and lost track of time. She spent most of prom night watching his every move like some weird puppy dog. She dumped me 3 days after prom. Asked her why she didn't just tell me that she wanted to go to prom with him instead, so I could have been there with someone that wanted to be there with me. She's really dumb about it. They totally weren't dating after that, even though a lot of our friends were telling me they were seeing them out of everywhere. Honestly, I didn't care at that point, and I took the opportunity to ask out her best friend, who eagerly replied yes, like she had been just waiting for me to ask. Then she had the nerve to accuse me of being vengeful, even though she's the one that dumped me for my own buddy. Ironically enough, he and I are in good terms these days, but for some reason, he thought I was mad at him for a few years in the middle there, where I clearly was not rude or spiteful towards him. When he finally brought it up, I laughed about it and said, "You've been thinking about that for a while, haven't you?" Don't worry, I haven't been. What's a silent red flag most people don't notice in relationships? Like a lot of stories here, this one is about accountability and fake apologies. My last relationship was far from perfect, and we tried to save it. Took me far too long to realize that the biggest issue I faced was my partner not taking accountability. Most times, they twisted scenarios to make me the villain. For example, "I'm sorry I made you feel like that, but do you not understand how you make me feel when you tell me something I did upset you?" Guys, if you notice this, leave. It doesn't get any better and leads to resentment really quickly once you realize the pattern. Story 2. Passivity. My son had a girlfriend like that. Sweet and likable, but dear God, she had zero ambition. She earned her degree in my career field. She asked for my help getting her internships. I set up 2 separate contacts and she never called. She moved in with my son and did pet sitting, but never found a job that actually earned reliable money. And while she was home most of the day, she never did anything but watch television. So my son would come home to a trashed house and nothing done. I mean, it's one thing if you're off working. It's another thing entirely if you're doing nothing at all. Plus, because she was bored, she started to drink. My son, a good kid, finally tossed her out when she promised to change, and then 3 days later spent the entire day at a bar. You don't have to be some type A hard-changing person. That's not it, but you have to have the basic motivation to get off the sofa and do something, to contribute to the relationship in meaningful ways, rather than just absorb what's handed to you. Story 3. If someone says no to anything and you pressure them under the guise of, "Come on, you love it," or "It'll be so fun," and you keep asking, maybe even recruiting others to change their mind, it's pushing a boundary they've already set. It doesn't matter how kind you are about it. Anytime this has happened in a relationship, that person would later on start picking away at other boundaries since I'd previously allowed it by dropping my boundaries to cave to social pressure. If I didn't give in, then usually there's the boundary pushing with constant digs about a stick up my butt. There isn't. No just means no. Story 4. You're expected to do a lot more for them than they are for you, regardless of what you're doing. I dated someone who would constantly ask me to do small things for her. It started with asking me to get something from another room even though she wasn't busy in any way while I was. It escalated to a point where anytime I tried to study, she'd stop me every 5 minutes to do things for her that she could have easily done herself. It was entitled low-key controlling behavior. One of my friends pointed it out to me later. I thought I was crazy for complaining about it, but it was obvious even to other people. Story 5. Content. When one person starts mocking or belittling the other or choosing to disbelieve them, reading into their actions based on assumption or acting like they're smarter or better, it drains all the respect from the relationship. Over time, that behavior shuts down trust, curiosity, and any real chance to stay close. It doesn't even have to be big. Something as simple as not giving the other the benefit of the doubt over small mistakes will quietly erode over time. Story 6. If they talk crap about their friends or family, it's a red flag. It's common to vent on a surface level about those closest to you, but if they're criticizing the core traits of their loved ones over and over, or if they confide their secrets to you, just know there's a good chance that person will also talk crap about you and air your dirty laundry. My ex used to tell me, unsolicited, all the drama and scandals of his friend group, and it took me a while to realize that he was a disloyal person who wasn't considerate of anyone's feelings so long as he got attention. Story 7. How they react when they don't get their way. It's easy for everyone to be nice in a relationship in the beginning because you're in the honeymoon phase and the other person is your number one priority all the time. But as relationships go on and life gets in the way, things come up. Seeing early on how somebody is able to cope with others saying no or just things not going their way is a big deal. I saw this with my ex but ignored it early on. Of course, after 2 years and some tough general circumstances in life for us, she basically turned on me. Story 8. My ex was super nice and went out of his way to be friendly to make sure everyone liked him. This included his friends and family. He would go to things out of obligation even when he didn't want to go. He would talk crap about his friends and siblings to me but never speak up to their faces. It turns out he just had this fake front on at all times, except with me. Him being so nice to everyone else threw me off, so I let things slide, but really he was just narcissistic and wanted everyone to like him while treating me like crap. I found out this weekend that most of my family saw right through it and didn't like him. Lol. Story 9. I'm seeing a lot of red flags that really aren't that silent, but this could just be my perspective. One that I believe is silent would be someone who is overly agreeable or likes everything. For example, you're on your first date and you're getting to know each other through conversation. The date seems to like every hobby, every sport, and every interest that you express during these conversations. They even go so far as to agree with your views on different topics, like favorite classes in the school, politics, music, science theory, or whatever. A lot of people would see this and think, whoa, I finally found someone that likes the same things as I do and shares the same opinions. To me, this is a red flag that won't present itself until years down the road. This person could be totally honest. However, it's also, and probably more so, likely that they aren't, and they're just going along with you because the right amount of things line up. You get along well and the physical attraction is there. In this scenario, the date is essentially silencing their opinions, interests, and hobbies in order to appease and appeal to you. Over time, this will cause a lot of inner turmoil that will come out and screw up the relationship. Story 10. Double standard or hypocrisy. Once, we were eating on his bed, didn't have a dinner table or coffee table, and I accidentally knocked the pizza crust off my plate. He freaked the heck out, thinking I was going to stain or dirty his bedding. I didn't make any mess. I picked it up right away and all was fine. Not even 2 minutes later, a big drip of pizza sauce fell from the slice he was shoving down his gullet and stained the crap out of his bedding. No reaction. It's fine that he did it, but he would always freak out about the smallest things I would do wrong. And he could do the same thing and it was fine. That happened a lot throughout the relationship. Story 11. This applies to all types of relationships. The inability to sit in discomfort. This manifests in different ways, such as defensiveness, deflection, and inability to handle conflict or direct communication, moving from one partner to the next. They can't be alone and won't self-reflect. They tend to be delusional, saying things like, they don't like me because I'm too good for them, or they're upset because they're so into me, or I have such an effect on them. These aren't the worst people in the world, but this trait is not conducive to a healthy relationship. For early dating, the biggest red flag I've noticed is when they do something, you tell them it makes you uncomfortable, they may even apologize and stop for a little bit, but then they continue to do it. They don't care about your feelings, they just care about getting what they want. Speaking ill of their prior partners is a major red flag, but that's not technically a silent one. Story 12. When he makes a mistake, he ignores the matter and doesn't apologize. Instead, he tries to change the atmosphere between you by joking without mentioning his mistake, or when you ask him to apologize or discuss what happened between you, he gets angry. Another thing is when you give your opinion, he makes fun of it as if he's telling a joke, or he says, I know better than you. Or when he does something that hurts you or violates your boundaries, and instead of taking responsibility, he tells you, I did this for your own good, or you and I are one. It's a soft rap. Story 13. I would say anything to do with money. My ex started off with, oh, have you got a couple of pounds in cash? I don't have any cash on me. Then it would be, oh, I forgot my card. Would you mind getting this round? By the time he left, he was rinsing me for so much cash I was in default on my mortgage and had to borrow £16,000 to cover the debts I'd accrued. He's doing the same to his new wife now, and it was so insidious I didn't notice how it was growing. I'm sure she hasn't either. Story 14. They always check your phone or even keep it for long periods of time, answering it or using it for you, but they don't let you see theirs at all. Last but not least, the one that my last ex used to do to me almost every day, which I hate more than anything and I wish I never had to deal with it in my life and hate myself for. They would cheat on you almost every day, but then they would be very cruel about accusing you of being unfaithful, or they would be very untrustworthy of you even though you were literally only in the room all day every day and didn't even leave. Story 15. If someone has a bad relationship with their family, it's a red flag. A lot of red flags are some kind of adaptation to a toxic environment. It could be a work environment, a roommate situation, or a previous marriage, etc., but family seems to be the big one, and it's easier to ask about than previous marriages. Lol. If their parents gave them a hard time about doing chores wrong, they're going to be afraid of housework. If they work at a place where everyone holds grudges, they're going to start doing it too. And if their last spouse was passive-aggressive, they're going to check everything you say for hidden insults. The sad part is, it's not usually their fault that they're like this, but they can make a relationship with them very difficult. Story 16. A lack of consideration for your time and an inability to think about how their actions could impact your life. Little things like not checking in with you, making plans with friends without giving you a chance to be part of their schedule when it's convenient for both of you, or making any relatively large decision without even checking in with you. Your partner might not always make the decision you want, but the best ones will see you as exactly that, a partner in life. At the very least, they will keep you in the loop and prioritize you to a reasonable extent. Story 17. 2 silent warning signals, and I emphasize silent, are essential in my opinion to analyze. The first is the way a person treats others, especially those where he or she has a position of strength. Animals, children, elderly people, waiters, cashiers, etc. The second, and one where almost all my loved ones and the people I meet fall victim to, is victimization. It is one of the biggest manipulation tools, very effective, and one that allows a person to completely establish control in a relationship. If you meet a person who constantly puts themselves in the victim position, who feels persecuted by everyone, who's never at fault, and who doesn't hesitate to cry in private or in public to get what they want, be careful. This weapon is effective because if you dare to contradict them, you will become the bad guy. In all the unhealthy relationships I've had to listen to, this point kept coming up, and it's always very subtle. Story 18. For women, watch how he treats and talks to his mom and female relatives. I was an idiot for not noticing how condescending, dismissive, and rude he was to his mom. Granted, he spoke Cantonese and I don't, but even with the English he used with her or when talking about her to me, I should have run. Run. Oh, and him doing nice things for others. Doesn't matter if he's mean or angry about doing it later. He was a knight in shining armor when people were watching, but behind closed doors, he was mean, petty, and often resentful of the help he gave unless it furthered his connections. This is why mothers are key. They usually love unconditionally, take their crap, and didn't need his mother to advance his image. You see them at their truest self because they know they can't ever lose that person. Story 19. I guess it's not really a silent red flag, but it's a red flag when someone love bombs you. And I don't mean in the sense of literally telling you they love you right away, but putting pressure on you to feel the same way from the get-go. After only a couple of months of speaking, my ex asked me if I'd take a bullet and sacrifice myself for her. She told me she would, but I said I wouldn't because I didn't know her on a very intimately personal level like that, and I had responsibilities to my family. She got offended that I didn't reciprocate the same sentiment. I almost felt guilty and felt like maybe I wasn't putting in enough effort. Patterns of someone really throwing themselves at you from the start most times don't mean that they'll feel that way about you in a few months or a few years down the line. It usually stems from low self-esteem and then need to be liked. If they can throw themselves at you so quickly due to low self-esteem, they can always do it to someone else as well, potentially blurring boundaries. Story 20. Monopolizing your time. It's almost endearing how our new relationships want to spend all their time with us. It's so cute that they care about us so much. We found a perfect person to spend the rest of our lives with. That's possessive behavior. Starts out as hyper-dating, and you wake up 5 years later with all your familial ties cut and no friends to hang out with anymore. Of course, you write it off as a choice, except you're 30 now and stuck because everyone else has moved on. I guess it's time to have a kid or two since this is the way it's supposed to be. Story 21. People start to rearrange or fix things in your possessions or space very early in the relationship, especially if you call them on it and they'll tell you that this is how every normal person does it and you should just get over it. The girl who insists on taking down a painting by your departed best friend today is going to ban your favorite foods from the fridge, throw out your treasured old leather jacket, and use the handmade Afghan by your favorite aunt as a cargo pad so that it comes back stained and torn. She will insist she was doing you a favor every time. Story 22. Might sound weird, but having mental health issues and actively refusing actual help is a major red flag. I think a lot of us want help and save these kinds of people or excuse it, thinking it's not their choice or they can't get help, but they'll drag you down with them when it gets worse. Not always, but if they refuse to do anything about it, they don't want to get better, even if they say they do. It's easy to be a victim of your own making. It's hard to pull away from someone who pretends to want help. They'll always be a victim and make you the villain in any type of relationship. Friends, family, or romantic relationships. Story 23. The partner had better be doing 50% of the housework, the cooking, the childcare, everything, regardless of how much they work or how much they pay for. When they're at work, they're at work. When they're alone at home, they're responsible for the home. When they're both home, they're responsible for half the load. If the man is earning $100,000 and the woman is earning $20,000, that doesn't mean the man doesn't need to do everything to contribute. Intimacy is not transactional. In return, she has intimacy with him when she feels like it? Brother, that statement is messed up in so many ways. Taking your example, what is she doing? Is she doing 100% of the house and childcare? Is she doing all the planning, organizing, scheduling, managing both their schedules, reminding him of the tasks he'd promised he'd do that have deadlines and then having to text him during her work hours to walk him through doing it? Tasks that he should already know how to do, because he waited until the last minute. Does he say he'll do things and not do them, so she ends up with it on her plate and has to rearrange her schedule to get it done at the last minute because she figured he was an adult and could manage to get it done without gentle reminders and regular follow-ups? If you sign up for a transactional relationship, you don't get to complain when it's transactional. You expect a partnership, fail to be a partner, and then follow up with, "You never do anything for me," when that partner is burnt out from taking on most of the load and still finding little ways to show their spouse they care. Story 24. How they understand and respect their personal boundaries and the boundaries of others. A person who lacks awareness of boundaries will often find themselves in situations where their boundaries are getting crossed, which usually causes them to have heightened reactions. This also usually indicates a lack of respect and awareness of others' boundaries, which can lead to some uncomfortable and intense situations when discord occurs. I struggled a lot with this myself, and my ex did too. It really helped me to recognize how important this concept is and how, generally, people don't seem to have a good understanding or healthy examples of what they look like or how they operate. Story 25. This may not seem like much, but my ex would never look at me when we were around other people and talking about a common topic such as politics, studies, or general views of life. Even when I was a part of the conversation, he'd only look at other people, or the other person if there were only three of us. I pointed this out multiple times, and he always said it was unconscious and that he'd try to change it, but never understood why it was happening at all. Never changed it, by the way. Just made me feel so crappy and dismissed. Story 26. I dated a guy for 2 years and never met his friends, kids, or parents. We were from different countries, but he moved to my country so he could give 100% to the relationship. Things ended really badly, and I had to go to therapy for a year. I'm seeing someone now, also in a long-distance relationship. He has 2 kids, and we met in person once. The second time will be soon, and our communication is great. I think my red flag would be if he does this again and doesn't introduce me to his family, friends, or children. I think he wants to be cautious because the kids are part of a 14-year divorce, but I think I can wait a year to see if he does it willingly. Otherwise, I'll end the relationship. Story 27. Deep insecurity. Yes, everyone feels insecure, but someone who can't find a handful of things about themselves they like or appreciate, who deeply does not like themselves, will absolutely ruin you. I got into a relationship while I was in the best place I could be, and they were not. I was compared to exes, both negatively and positively, all the time. I couldn't compliment her. She told me all the time how she didn't deserve me and how I was too good for her. I should have taken that seriously. She cheated on me with a friend because they showed her attention. I'll never know if she wanted me because I gave her the attention she was missing or because she liked me for me. Story 28. My ex never said anything of note. Nothing. No opinions, no personal information. They refused to tell me their mother's name because it doesn't matter. It was all superficial and generic. It could be applied to anyone, anywhere. All opinions were basic as heck. I had to ask what they thought about literally everything, and the only thing I ever got was super cute. The same thing was said to everyone about anything. Their entire personality was basically a cheeseburger with mustard and lettuce only. All 30-year-old sitcom reruns. They were in their 40s. I thought they were just really quiet and reserved for a year or so. It turns out they were completely disconnected from everything at all times. 5 years. I still have no idea what the heck I actually dated. Story 29. Pointing out a task they are perfectly capable of doing and expecting you to do it. This is not like, "Can you do the dishes since I cooked?" or "Would you fold the laundry while I'm at work?" This is things like announcing from the couch that the sink isn't draining or telling you the garbage can is full when nothing prevents them from emptying it. It shows they view your time as inherently less valuable than their own. They presume their desire not to do a necessary task is more important and valid than your desire not to do the same necessary task. If you're enjoying the video, don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button for more videos like this. Story 30. Someone who believes that nothing is a simple accident and that every mishap must have someone to blame. Believe me, that person will never be them. In the beginning, the blame will always be on others. Other drivers, the waiter, his parents, etc. Later, 80% of the time, it's going to be you who caused the mishap. You're the one to blame in some way. Salt spilled, they left the lid too loose or left the shaker too close to the edge of the table, etc. Garage door broke. Remember 6 months ago when you bumped the sensor and tried to close it with a remote? You burned the motor up. Nail in your tire? That's because you insist on driving down the street where there's a house being built. The list goes on. Story 31. I think the biggest red flag is how they react in a crisis, both yours and theirs, and unfortunately, you don't know how they're going to react until it happens. I saw someone on TikTok post that your long-term partner is going to be there when both your parents pass away, so choose wisely. It's painfully true. My mom had cancer when I was dating my last ex. It was manageable until it wasn't. She went downhill pretty rapidly. I was scared and upset, and it was like 3 months of waking up thinking, is today going to be the day it happens? Instead of being there for me, he dumped me and got back together with his ex that he told me not to worry about. He said he needed something easier and more accessible. That was like 4 years ago, and every 6 months to a year, he tries to get back in contact, saying I was the one that got away or whatever, but it's like, baby, you didn't even let me get away. You kicked my butt out the door and slammed and locked it behind you. It's not my fault you regret your crappy actions. Find someone who's going to be there for you when the world is burning around you. Otherwise, they're just going to add wood and fuel to the fire. Story 32. How they react when they're on the receiving end of manners or general kind gestures. For example, how do they react when you offer to pay for food, hold open the door for them, or pull out their chair, or even say something like, hey, I'm getting a can of cola, would you like one as well? I found that if someone is super apprehensive about any of those things, then it's usually a precursor for emotional unavailability. If they cannot handle something as small as you buying them a $2 can of cola, then they're not going to be someone who will hold space for you in a relationship. Story 33. I don't know if this is considered a silent red flag, but beware of people who tend to always fall out with their friends. I've had 2 friendships like this with people who had very different personalities, but the result ended up the same. I stopped being friends with both of them at different points in my life because their behavior was very selfish. It's one thing to have conflict in friendships. That's normal. However, someone who has had many friends and has fallen out with all of them at different points in time should start to raise some alarm bells. They'll definitely be the villain in their story one day. Story 34. When they talk badly about family, it's a red flag. Assuming they're good people trying to get out of a bad home, do you really want to handle that? Also, if they're just toxic in general, they could be mentally ill. In my book, it's a no-brainer. A bad family often means trauma or bad vibes. Even the small portion of people who get out of this family trauma and end up doing well might still unknowingly carry some narcissistic traits. Coming from a toxic or dysfunctional family isn't just a chapter in someone's past. It's often the blueprint for how they navigate the world, especially in relationships. Story 35. When their words don't match their actions, or their actions are there in a showy way but not in the foundational way they're needed. Not a relationship example, but have a friend who likes to boast about how good of a friend she is. Her actions were there in performative ways. She wanted to buy me an extremely expensive Christmas gift while in debt. She said everything that was hers was ours, etc. However, a lot of foundational actions between friends were missing. She thrives in starting drama between people, and every time she's with someone in person, she calls another friend at least once to catch up or gossip. Foundational actions and trust builders are always more important to have than showy displays of affection. Story 36. Those who refuse to consider the idea of therapy because they think it is silly or unneeded, not for financial reasons or out of fear, suddenly hold things over you, such as bringing up how they bought you a gift or took you out to eat during an argument. This includes saying, you did XYZ in the past, so why are you bringing this up now? I am admittedly guilty of this as well. Repeatedly doing something you said you do not like, even when they say it's a joke. Not standing up for you when friends or family make fun of you, when they don't introduce you to friends or family and instead just leave you to do it yourself. This one might seem kind of dumb to others, but it's more of a mannerism that irks me. Story 37. This one can be subtle. You're doing this task wrong, so stop vibe. This is manifested for me in a few different ways. For example, you're doing something for yourself and maybe the other person might or might not have experience. For example, I was putting up some of that sticker wallpaper. I'd never done it before. I bought a really nice pattern I loved and was figuring out as I went. I did research on YouTube. We didn't live together. They had seen the paper and knew it was something on my to-do list. I told them earlier in the text that it was what I was doing, and if they didn't want to help, they didn't need to come over that night, but he was like, I'm really good at that. I'm coming. My partner came in and was like, beside myself. I was doing it wrong. Like, yeah, I had a bunch crumpled up because it messed up. I wasn't sweating about the waste, though. I was just trying to have fun and learn. I wasn't cutting or measuring right. I tried to show him the videos I was referencing. At some point, I told him if he wasn't having fun or didn't want to help, he could go, but we got 2 rows up and realized we didn't have enough left to finish the wall, and I was like, I'll buy more, okay? And he was like, no, we will do. Like paint and stencil. And just completely insisted his way was better and that we should just stop. I'm like, okay, so we just stopped. The painting and stenciling never happened. They don't print that wallpaper anymore. Like, I can understand being like, that's not my thing, but I don't understand, okay, but why would you actively stop me? For example, can you build an IKEA shelf together? Will the person be weird if you're on a lower skill level than them? Will they be a butt about it, or will they help you get better? Can you run errands and grocery shop together? Do they have to do it their way or else get annoyed with you? I've had relationships where this was a nightmare, and now make sure we run an errand early somewhere to make sure they aren't a bum. It could be chores, it could be the way you set up the kitchen, it could be a hobby. If there's something that is inconsequential to them that they get annoyed by and try to meddle in, even under the guise of helping, get the heck out. Story 38. I'm wondering if this is a red flag now. Making decisions without consulting me, even in minor ways, is a consistent issue. For instance, we agreed yesterday that we would run errands to get items for a barbecue, shop at Trader Joe's and pick up things for Korean barbecue, and then go into a Korean market, Trader Joe's, and a grocery store. She wasn't feeling well, and our kids' lunch is usually between 11 and 12, with a nap from 1 to 3. While we were together running errands, she suddenly announced at 11 a.m. that we needed to cut the errand short after she got what she wanted at Trader Joe's. That meant we got nothing for the barbecue, because we skipped the grocery store, and nothing for the Korean barbecue because the produce was off. The change in plans meant that I had to either stay at her place until nap time was over or come back afterward. I always have to circle back to be heard, but it's annoying to say the least. It happens with other things too. Decisions are made that inconvenience me without any consultation. Story 39. A flat-out refusal to apologize or take accountability. When you try to bring something up that upsets you, instead of listening, they literally walk away mid-conversation and even go as far as regularly closing a door in your face. They'll gaslight you, and when you point it out, they gaslight you further by saying you don't know what gaslighting means. I'm still married to this person, but we've separated while living together. Unfortunately, my salary and the current high cost of living are making it impossible for me to move out without being forced to live with strangers, which is the last thing I want to do. I've definitely learned my lesson about not allowing those lovely early feelings of love to cloud my judgment and make me ignore major red flags. Story 40. This may not be the sort of answer you're looking for, but have a good way of telling whether a relationship will work out or not. Are both people in the relationship exactly the same person, whether they're alone or with their partner? That's my key criterion. If they're truly relaxed and true to themselves, they will be exactly the same person with or without their partner. That's a strong relationship. However, if only one of them becomes more talkative, silly, humorous, or sarcastic when they're not with their partner, then they're being stifled by their relationship, or they're pretending to be the person they think their partner wants them to be. Those relationships never work out in the end. Story 41. Never apologizing or refusing to accept that something was their fault, even if it's a slight error. It should be no big deal to just admit you messed up on something. To some people, however, it's a huge deal and they'll refuse to admit fault until the end. Another aspect to add is when a person is trying to admit guilt, yet the very act of admitting they're guilty of some dumb thing, absolutely not even a huge deal, causes them to spiral out of control in despair and depression, and they lash out at others or shove others away so they can be alone. That right there, that's a ticking time bomb of a broken relationship. Instead of trying to calmly talk through any issues they have, they bottle everything up and then just freaking explode at random. And then, even worse, they hold that over you by never forgiving themselves, so anything you've built up to that point is ruined, and anything you try to build with them will be ruined because they'll never forgive themselves for something stupid and trivial. Yet at the same freaking time, for something that is truly important to building a better relationship, to them it's not a big deal. They'll be mad at you for making it a big deal, and they'll hold that against you and claim to everyone that you're what's wrong because you dared to care about something important. Story 42. Moving your stuff, mostly from your areas or using your stuff. Is it out of convenience, like piling things on your side of the bed instead of theirs? Do they use your stuff and put it back where you had it, or do they leave it where it was, or move to an area where they can use it more easily? I'm not talking about cleaning, tidying, or shared items, like where to put the milk in the fridge or the extra soap. I'm talking about this. If you have a tool and you keep it in your desk and they need it, what do they do after? And especially what happens if they hate the reverse and get upset if you were to move something of theirs? Is it a pattern? Do they roll their eyes? Do they acknowledge it but not do better? Story 43. Whenever I would tell my ex about an instance in my day where I had disagreed with someone else, he would be quick to take the other person's side, even when I was in the right. When I assumed blame for a disagreement, he would heartily agree. I noticed that this was a pattern where I would never get any form of support or validation from him. Later, he would also pit my opinions and experiences against those of online strangers, or the proverbial "many people say this, so you must be wrong." For example, he cited an online discussion where someone claimed that eating eggs as a snack was weird. I told him that where I'm from, it's normal. He proceeded to argue that the people in the discussion were right and I was wrong because one of them was Asian, I'm also Asian, and he went so far as to say that my people were weird for snacking on eggs. After that, he further tried to push the idea that he was also Asian because he had relatives in Indonesia. He's Dutch and Caucasian, just to absolve himself of accountability for calling my people weird. But he would be equally quick to expect unwavering support and validation from me and his friends, even when he was in the wrong. Anytime he would be met with dissent, he would either shut down or subtly threaten to block the person disagreeing with him. Story 44. Not being on time for dates in the beginning with sorry excuses. Damn, I still think back to that first date I went on and how something crazy happened. He was on his way and he would be there, so we went. He finally made it. Come to find out, that was just a pattern and a part of his personality. When he said he was 10 minutes away, it was an hour. When he said he would be right there, it was hours later. Still kick myself for not recognizing the red flag. That literally opened the door to a lack of accountability and disrespect. I mean, it was all shown from the very first date. Story 45. When I was a few months into a relationship with my now ex-girlfriend, I dropped her off at the tanning salon. I then went to 2 stores to pick up stuff for the house. I said I was going to A and then B. It should take about 15 minutes and I'll come back and pick you up. It took about 20, but that wasn't the issue. See, I said I was going to place A and place B, but for whatever reason, I went to B first and came into the parking lot from the opposite direction, so I was lying to her, and she could no longer trust me when I told her things. This turned into our first actual argument and then the silent treatment for days. Little did I know this would set the tone for most of the rest of our relationship with her nutty, control freak behavior. I put up with it for years because I had a crush on her for almost a decade before we finally got together, and I really wanted to make it work. Story 46. I'm not sure if this is considered a silent red flag, but for me, it's someone who keeps complaining that what you want is too hard for them to acquire, or that it's always too hard for them to afford to go to a place you want to go. I've realized that I'm always suggesting new places for fun, with a full understanding that if someone says they can't afford it, it's a good thing to try and change places to accommodate them. But this keeps happening to me no matter where I suggest and how many times I do it. Sometimes it's not even a comment directed at me, they just ruin the vibe by saying, "Why do you always go to such expensive places?" When I'm literally suggesting to try out different things. Of course, money is going to be necessary, and most of the time it's not even an unreasonable price range. I was only suggesting it as a once-in-a-while experience in hopes of introducing something new to the group and to my partner. I think it's a red flag if you always have to accommodate someone and they haven't once thought about you putting up with them or tried to make an effort to accompany you. It's happened to me on my birthday when I asked my boyfriend and best friends to try out a special collab cafe event. They complained it was too expensive and we ended up not going despite agreeing months in advance. They gave me money instead of buying me a decent present. I'd had it. Story 47. Odd behavior with her cell phone. This became an issue with the last guy I dated. He had his phone on him constantly and only within his reach. It went off constantly, and when he was doing whatever he was doing, he would put the phone face down. If he left the room, he'd take it with him. Even if he just got up to walk a few feet to grab something, he'd take it with him. The first several times he did this, I really didn't think much of it. Eventually, he started noticing that he'd do these things literally every time he touched his phone. I finally asked him about it, and he got super defensive. He said it was just a habit he'd gotten into. Oh, it's a habit, alright, of someone trying to hide something. Which he was. Story 48. People always say relationships are about compromise. If you have to compromise on so many things, then what is the incentive to be together other than intimacy? No one is perfect, and the grass isn't always greener on the other side, but you don't have to be in a relationship. If you can't agree on music, then all road trips sound terrible. Going to a concert or a movie you sincerely don't like doesn't sound fun. You just got off work, so let's spend the evening watching a show I or you dislike. If you don't agree in politics and or religion, have fun raising kids together. Divorce is so bizarre to me because I don't understand how a majority of those circumstances aren't obvious before marriage. I've been with my SO for over 12 years now, married for over 5, and the idea of divorce is incomprehensible. The stuff we enjoy together, we do together. If she wants to watch some Grey's Anatomy, then I'll go play video games. If she wants to see a Blair movie, then she has friends and family. This works both ways. Luckily, we enjoy most of the same things. Story 49. Not being happy for you. My last relationship was the first time I dealt with something like this. I graduated from college, got a good job, and got into grad school. Instead of being happy for me, he was jealous and complained that I did too much. All he did was talk about how he hated his life and wanted more, not understanding how that truly hurt me. I was like he was saying, "You're not happy, even with me in your life? All the work I did was for us, yet it wasn't enough." It really broke me down. But now I'm in a relationship, or for the first time, someone is happy for all I've done and accomplished. If I get a raise at work, he's super happy. If he gets promoted, I'm ecstatic. We're happy for each other because what we do is for us, and this is something that my ex never understood. Story 50. How they talk about the women in their life. A string of crappy exes is bad, but how he regards the other women in his life is more telling. It's true that there are exceptions, but I always feel good about a guy who is appreciative of his mother and female relatives. Also, how often he takes initiative, and if not, why not? I know good guys who happen to be chronic overthinkers, but they try to be appreciative. And they do try. But there are guys who will ask for ridiculous things and not even think about reciprocating, and when asked for even minor things, they throw a fit. Lastly, and I don't know if this counts for others, but I'm wary of cynical or negative people. It brings me down and I feel uncomfortable being more positive. Story 51. Secrets. There were so many things that would upset him that I was constantly keeping things from him. For example, I didn't approve of the radio station I used to listen to, so I only listened in secret. I'm sure it happened a few times, but I distinctly remember one time where we were driving and a popular song came on some other radio station. Started humming or singing along to it without realizing it, and he was furious. Absolutely livid. He turned to me and demanded to know how I knew the lyrics and why would I listen to that type of song. A fight, crying, and profuse apologizing on my part ensued. Sometimes secrets are good, like engagements or pregnancies. If, however, you find yourself keeping a lot of secrets because you're afraid, there's something wrong with a relationship. Well, if you like these stories, here's more. YouTube thinks you're going to love this. Catch you in that video.